He was fighting rebellion in a little place called Tunisia.
What do you mean you're not? Mike's not getting picked up.
Garble
Yep,
just
there we
delivered
go.
the instruction
What,
for us.
am I
Is
supposed to deliver
OBS
the intro? What am I supposed to do?
Don't worry about it. OBS, I fixed it already. OBS did this great thing where it ruined everything. So let's
Well,
try
Oh,
it
Back
again.
to
okay.
Garbled's Galaxy.
Exactly. Hello there, Lord, ladies and internet. Welcome back to the Council of Candor, episode 43. Sorry about the delay between streams and videos. Some real life things have come up. I hope those of you who found us through the Hyena video are enjoying it. The next video is going to be on the Tarask. I'm going to tell you all that now. Little spoilers for those who tune into the live stream. And it is going to be fun. Unfortunately, due to real life situations, it's taking a bit longer than I expected to get it done. I should have the script done in a day or two, and I'll be able to put the video out hopefully in a week or so. So yes, welcome. And today we're talking about, as the title says, urban fantasy. What is
That's
urban
right.
fantasy? And what are some of the boundary cases that get near urban fantasy? And what are some of the best currently running or previously running urban fantasy series? Tonight, I'm joined by several guests. The ever-favorite Dez will be joining us at some point later, I believe. And first up, though, is a returning co-host, my local author boy, Mr. Pag. How you doing, Pag?
Hello. How's it going, guys? I'm pretty good. Eventually I'll start posting that new story. Eventually. It's, I've only got like 3 novels of it banged out already. Well, I don't know what I'm waiting for.
Right on.
Yep.
What are you waiting for?
I don't know. I don't. It's a lot of effort to set up. Like, there's this website called Royal Road, which I intend to release it chapter by chapter before I release the whole novels wholesale. And it's just a monumental task to slice up the novel into its individual chapters and then put it in there. And I'm intending on making like a Patreon so I can generate some currency from it whilst I'm releasing the chapters still. It's taken a long time. It's taken a long time, and I'm putting it off because I am great at procrastinating. Just fantastic at it.
Dude, procrastinating is the easiest thing in the world to do. Just procrastinate. Like, if you don't want to do it, just do it later, man. Like,
Yeah, and I'm like the
Put it
world
off.
champion at it.
yeah,
The only thing that I don't procrastinate on is procrastinating.
yeah.
I procrastinate
You gotta
now.
get your reps in, man. Gotta get your reps in.
Yeah.
I just want to say first, Future Wario, you're going to be safe, my friend. I know that we keep seeing all these memes and these images of planes crashing lately, but planes are still the safest way to travel, buddy.
Isn't it
Don't you worry.
99% or something?
Yeah. And the other reason planes are so safe is if your plane does crash, it's actually really rare for you to die completely anymore. Because the
Wasn't
good
there
news
the-
is planes, when they break, they either break when they're landing, which you're pretty safe, or when they're taking off, which that's pretty safe. Very rarely do they explode mid-flight anymore. You've got that figured out very well.
Yeah. Wasn't there the one story of the plane that landed upside down and everybody survived?
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
the one
yeah.
it hit the ground and rolled. Yeah.
Yeah.
Only 99% of frequent flyers die before 30. You should be fine.
Exactly. All right, and now before
Exactly.
and speaking of which, I think that should introduce our next co-host, Mr. Shoddy Strawman himself, Garbled. Go bother Garbled and get his channel to get going
Why are
again.
you saying I'm gonna die before I get to 30? I already have worries about that. Now you're just confirming them.
Dude, you're
Thank you for being such a
already
supportive
balding.
friend, dude.
You're already balding.
Garbled.
So I mean, it's already over.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry.
Yeah, go tune into his channel, which is all about frequent flying and how he's going to crash his planes. That's his next content. He's quitting Pokemon
just-
content.
That's what happened in September on like 24 years ago or something.
Dude,
Don't worry about it.
He just
I have,
records
like,
videos
7
from
scripts. I have 7 scripts for videos, somewhere around there, where I just keep writing them, and then I never finish them, and it just never gets finished. So I need to make videos. I should make videos, and then I just never do because I keep on playing Deadlock instead because it's so much fun.
In the
if you
meantime,
wanna,
he's
like,
just been
Discord
posting
and post
videos of in the meantime, Garble's been posting videos of him just like with front-facing camera in plane saying, "I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it." So I don't know what the deal with that
If
is.
he's going to do it.
Yeah,
I'll
kind of a
he's gonna
weird
make more
genre.
scripts.
Oh,
Good for you.
yeah.
All right. then
I just
next
have
up-
to make it easier for me to make videos. Thank you
Mhm.
for having me, kid. It's great to be here, and thank you to your audience for being here. It's great to have you.
Of course.
I
And,
hate his audience.
we haven't got you yet, boy. Returning as a fan favorite, my number one animal boy, Mr. Pops. How's it going, Pops?
It's going pretty well. I'm still wondering when Dez is going to get here, but yeah, in terms of the video you're coming up with about the French monster,
Yep.
I took an interest in that because you brought it up to me, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun when this video comes out because I know the level of research you're going to have to do to try and back up some of these claims.
And it's going to have I got an interesting take on the Tarrasque. I think a lot of people do a very, very poor level of looking into one of these creatures, and I'm very happy with what I've managed to pull off with this one. I even got a French person to read things for me, chat.
That's right.
French? Oh.
Last but not least, introducing your new favorite friend, your friend, and your new father, Vim. Hello, Vim.
Hi, man. I'm gonna be here for 10 minutes to 2 hours. I don't know. We'll see.
Hey
I'm
guys,
just,
this
I'm
is
really
my
just here because
stepladder. I never knew my real ladder.
kid
He's right here.
promised me $50 and a handy if I came to this. So
Exactly. So,
And he will redeem.
oh boy, I will.
Do not
Let me
redeem.
tell you.
and on that subject of redeeming, it's time that we move into the special thing I have for you, chat. I know, chat, you usually like when we have videos playing and we respond to them. That's my favorite thing, too, when we EFAP stuff. Unfortunately, I don't really have anything for us to EFAP today. So instead...
Today we'll be EFApping, but not like the podcast, like a regular old EFAP, you know? Yeah.
So
Mhm.
instead, we're
Normal
going to be
fapping.
having this video playing in the background. Should be starting.
Guys,
anything on
don't
that?
worry.
Yeah,
Instead of EFApping, we are going to instead EFAP. It'll be
Yeah.
fun.
exactly. So while we talk today, you get to watch what's possibly an urban fantasy, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne. It is the 1916 movie. It is out of copyright now, so come at me, Universal Film Management and Company. I'll fight you all. And you specifically, Stuart Patton, I'll throw them hands. So
Just
yes.
throw hands.
So feel free to ask any questions in chat and let us know. But today we're going to start by, I think, defining what urban fantasy is. That's probably a good place to start because it's a really contentious issue, actually.
Actually, I've got a question because
Certainly.
I just showed up here unannounced. I didn't know what we were doing until 5 minutes ago. I've read Gans. Does that count?
Gams?
Hang on.
Gans?
Yes, and no,
G-A-N-T-Z?
and yes, and we probably can't talk about that one.
Okay.
A city in Poland?
No, there's
No,
a manga series called Gantz,
No.
and the entire thing is that people get revived after they die to participate in killing aliens, and it's
Insane.
weird and it's great and it's weird, but we can't talk about it.
That's cool. That's unfortunate that we can't talk about it.
It's very much mature only.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like a what's the fuck? It's like a Garth Ennis but Japanese kind of thing. It's that
I
degree
have
of being
no
like
idea what those
nihilism.
words mean.
I think that's the
I
boy
believe-
guy, isn't it?
That makes a lot of
I
sense.
believe it's
Yeah, where just like every other scene is like rape or like obscene in some way because
Yeah.
the guy was
it's what
pissed off.
it's
What
called.
a shocking
lolly.
amount.
His prior manga was a Yuri, like a really cute Yuri, and then he just like blew all of his money on 3D software and became like the most hateful man on the planet.
Any such cases.
Very funny. 90s 3D software, man.
Oh, boy.
guess-
Oh yeah, 90s 3D software. You know the
90s are special
best.
time.
Yeah.
All right. So with that,
So
go ahead.
I have in my notes, I have a definition that I think Kid will agree with, and some of you might not, depending on.
I already disagree. Go on.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
Gary probably disagree from his grave or wherever he's at. So yeah, I would say that as far as the definition, I don't really have a concrete one, but I feel like it's like something that it has like more or less like a modern realistic setting, you know, like something that's like familiar to you, but there's also an element of fantasy or like fantasy characters in it, like magic and things like that. I always figured like just what came to mind was always like urban fantasy meant like the modern day, like people are driving cars and using computers, but they're
Also, casting Fireball.
yeah.
Yeah.
Based, I don't know. I feel like it's generally I don't like urban fantasy. Like the stuff that I've seen, I'm not a fan. I feel like trying to modernize something like that almost gives it a de facto Americanization that almost is just too disparate from the quote unquote
Well,
like.
I was gonna say, okay, it's kind of like a weird, like I feel it's almost like dissonant sometimes when you read something like it's like why would they come to the same technological conclusions that we did without magic when they have magic or whatever else in
Yeah.
the universe, that kind of thing.
I think the thing that's important, I want to jump in here off Pops' definition, is it's not just having modern guns and magic. It specifically has to be our world with magic. It's got to
Does
have...
it, though?
It's like a Percy Jackson or a Harry Potter.
Yes,
or,
exactly.
But Harry Potter's bad.
And Harry Potter, it's not... Oh, question. Harry Potter's not bad. Harry Potter's world building fails when you get too into it. The stories aren't badly written. It's just the world building is...
Yeah, but I mean...
I think it's enjoyable, but not enjoyable on a nerd level.
Yeah.
Let me say this, like, as much as like you kind of think sometimes that in a lot of ways sci-fi and fantasy kind of do the same things just with tech versus magic, sci-fi works a lot better in kind of a modern world stuff, but like has the same vibe of being set in the modern world. Like one of the things you guys brought up was how there's like usually a hidden world type of element, like in Harry Potter, like they have
or the Chronicles of Narnia.
Narnia is another one. It's a hidden world inside. Well, that's not urban fantasy.
Narnia is not quite urban fantasy because the fantasy's separate. That's why Peter Pan doesn't qualify as an urban fantasy. It's called an otherworld story. Is what that's what that is. And
Is it isekai?
Isekai, if you will. Yeah.
It's not quite an isekai because I don't know. Isekai is the same thing, but isekai is different because usually you have to get smacked into it for the isekai to work.
Yo, dude, you just have to say hello to the truck.
Isekai literally translates to another world.
Yeah, that's fair. But the idea is it's this, there's another, I think it's Portal Fictions, the word that they use in old magazines about this, where it's basically you go through a reality of some sort and you're somewhere else. Alice in Wonderland is one of the first Portal Fictions. Because it's, you go over here, you're in haha weirdo Fantasyland, and you come home and nothing's different.
Down the rabbit hole, baby.
Exactly.
Yeah. My idea, I feel like it works better that you would have like a secret society or secret group in a sci-fi setting versus fantasy, because fantasy, I feel like so much of the things and the abilities that people have would be a lot harder to hide, especially when there's different races and things like that. But it's like, I feel like no matter how you do it, it's a very hard line to tread. And that's kind of why I don't generally enjoy it.
So it's one of those things that it's the lazy option a lot of times, but when it's done well, it's done very well. The problem is it doesn't take a whole lot of effort to say, this is an example in the worst versions of this. What if I took modern LA and just put orcs there? Like that probably has some
that's already
images.
Modern LA. Let's not mince words here. Sorry.
Yeah, I know. Careful. We have to talk about Brighton. No. Don't give them too many ideas.
Okay.
Stupid freaking book and movie.
That movie.
All style.
This Will Smith thing from like 2018-19, right?
Yeah, it is.
It's great. Yeah. The best part of that movie is when he kills that fairy. He goes, "Fairy lives don't matter." That's the best scene in the whole movie, and it's absolutely hysterical because it makes you question: are fairies like real people? Did he just straight up murder a dude in his front lawn? Because if it's supposed to be parroting, BLM, that means that in universe he just shot a black guy in his front yard and just said, BLM sucks, and walked away. And they're all like, "Well, he's right about that." But that's that
movie is deranged.
It's completely deranged and has no idea what it wants to do. Another funny thing about that movie is that the opening crawl, it says the 7 fantasy races, but there's at least 9 fantasy races that we see in the world.
Oh no!
So it's like 2 of them don't count as people. Then and who are the 2 that don't count?
Yeah, it's
just a good movie. I don't know what to tell you.
Exactly.
Yeah, Will Smith.
Yeah,
so great. Yeah.
Yes, Sweaty. Dresden Files is the best, and Not Affairs. Yeah, Dresden Files is one of the best ones about that. They're really so. Yeah, we'll get into those in a sec. But I want to show you the definition that Google has for this because it's so funny. Listen to how so many buzzwords are in it.
Does anyone have like a disputing definition?
Yeah, well, I don't really have a disputing definition so much as I would say that I don't agree that it needs to be our world. I think it needs to be within an anachronistic setting, such as a modern city. But like if you put magic onto like a ring world, like in science fiction, and there's spaceships flying around and whatnot, and yet people are still throwing around fireballs and chopping up dragons with broadswords. Like,
wouldn't that be sci-fi fantasy?
Yeah, I think that's more science fantasy. Though.
I mean, I think you're just getting to semantics. Like, I don't think like really like. I think the definition is obviously going to be pretty broad.
Well,
But I think that
Yeah,
when
but I think what Pag's trying to get at is that some stories are going to be urban fantasy, but not like now, you know?
Well,
Yeah.
I agree with Peg that it has to be like recognizable as like this could exist in our world.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's pretty much what I was thinking. Like it has to feel like the real world to an extent. You know, it doesn't have to be like the same exact city name on the street that you grew up on.
No.
All right,
Where's
that's
the
actually,
cutoff
that's
of,
actually
like,
the thing that I want to bring up. That's what sets urban fantasy as a genre apart. Is it is our world or a like near facsimile of our world. It's got to be like 80% our world for it to work. You know, that's why you have something like I know it's your favorite show ever, Pops, Supernatural. There's definitely monsters, there's definitely gods, there's definitely angels. They totally exist. But for some reason, all of history happened the exact same way. That show is 100% urban fantasy. But then you look at something like the City of Lankmar, which is where the Fafhrd and Grey Mouser stories take place. And that is just an entire fantasy setting with dragons and stuff. And it takes place in a city, but it's not urban fantasy. It's just fantasy in an urban environment. It's a different thing here because when urban fantasy is a subgenre, it necessitates not just modern technology, but we have societies and cultures that are almost nearly perfectly replicating our own. Like I know, like Mexico will probably exist in an urban fantasy setting and be called straight up Mexico unless something gets really weird. And the more you pull away from that, the less likely it is to be considered urban fantasy and simply be its own fantasy in the modern times. That's what sets them apart from a lot of stuff, and that's why it's so important, like for when you try to do genre definitions, to help pin that there. And that's why your example, Pag, wouldn't actually be urban fantasy, in especially in my definition, because that is, even though it's in an urban environment and it's fantasy, it would be like for that one to be science fantasy or modern day fantasy would be another one. And modern fantasy is still different from urban fantasy. And I know we're getting into really niche subgenres and semantics, but it's important. Grimm is better than Supernatural. Player, it's funny. My dad watched Grimm first, and I stopped my dad at season 5 of Supernatural, and it's funny because he's like, you know what, that was fine. I don't think I'd ever want to watch it again. But he's like, I like the concepts of Supernatural. It's very funny because I see after season 5, Supernatural gets awful.
It becomes a soap. Anyway, yeah. I mean, I guess if that's the commonly accepted definition, that's the commonly accepted definition. I think that's a little bit silly. I think it should be something more wide. And I like the term modern fantasy for being specifically referential of like our modern time, but fantasy. Is it the other way around though? Is it urban fantasy specifically references our time, and modern fantasy is just a fantasy that their timeline has gotten to the modern era?
Yes.
You know what? It's a pain in the butt. I feel like you can just kind of feel it. Like I don't know. Instinctively for me, I always thought urban fantasy was like a little more like darker, gritty.
It plays at that a lot, but it doesn't always have to be that. You can have a more lighthearted one. I think a great example, Dresden Files. It's not dark and gritty. It's much more of a fun, light thing. I don't want to say it's a comedy. It's like a light action situation. But then you have something like, what's the Neil Gaiman show? American Gods. That's much more darker and much more intense, and they're both urban fantasy.
Yeah, that's a good example too.
I have not, Future Warriors, seen The Great and Powerful Oz. I've heard about it, but it's on my list of movies. I haven't gotten to it yet. So, I'm sorry. But, yeah, and urban fantasy really starts to come about as I think, a lot of people have different ideas of what, like, the predecessor. Oh, hey, I never did Google definition, my bad. The Google definition is urban fantasy is a subgenre of fantasy literature that places supernatural elements and fantastical creatures within a contemporary urban setting, often exploring the idea of what if magical beings or concepts existed alongside humanity in a recognizable real-world city. So that's why that definition
like Vampire the Masquerade.
Masquerade is one of the best urban fantasy settings out there.
Yeah,
Masquerade is so much fun.
Yeah, I mean, like I have a lot of not shows, but like a lot of manga and stuff like that because they just tend to do that because it's very easy. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but it's very easy to be like, hey, what if I just introduce this element to the regular world?
Okay,
And it
have
makes
any
it
of
a
you
lot
guys
easier for
read?
people to
Are
understand.
any of you guys reading Bugle Call of War?
No.
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 Okay. No. Okay. Never mind.
Tell us about it.
Well, okay, I can't get into the urban fantasy part of it without it being spoilery because it's like a twist later in on the thing. So I will. You should read it. Very good manga.
Bugle.
Yeah, I think it's just called Bugle Call of War.
Call Song of War.
Yeah, that one. It's very good. It's like the only ongoing manga besides One Piece I'm actually keeping up with.
I'll add it to the list.
One
It's
Piece.
got.
Add it.
It's going to get a TV adaptation soon. Interesting.
Nice.
No, everything is fucking adapted now, man. It's actually like part of the reason I got out of anime a few years ago is because like I was reading a ton of manga, then every new season was something I'd read. It just became a
It's tough to get excited about new stuff. And to answer your question, all affairs, what about rule fantasy? I like the meme. Unfortunately, rule fantasy is not a thing.
nah, man. It's very real. I've never heard of it, but I think it's real.
Yeah. What we'd call rule fantasy is just urban fantasy, but with rednecks.
Oh, rural fantasy.
Yeah.
I couldn't understand because of your thick Armenian accent. I apologize.
There's
Sorry, I'm too powerful.
You're too
This
powerful,
Onward
man.
is a cool concept with a lame ending. Onward, if I recall, doesn't qualify because it's in its own reality. Like again, the key thing to think about when you're trying to think is it urban fantasy is does Mexico exist? Like not like as a concept like people who look like it, but if Mexico's there, if it's real and you can go visit Mexico or you can go visit Germany, then that's how you know. Or like if Abraham Lincoln is in the setting, it's probably urban fantasy.
The Dwarven Republic of Mexico.
You joke,
right.
but wait until we get into Shadowrun. It gets weird. So
Also, I think
Okay.
hot take all high fantasy is rural fantasy. Like Lord of the Rings is like 2 hours out of New York.
so going back into what where fantasy comes, a lot of people put, and this is very funny as a conceptual thing, the first urban fantasy thing ever is the the movie I Was a Teenage Werewolf, because that's that is because that's the first time that recognizably fantasy things exist in contemporary settings.
Contemporary. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
What was
would something like Dracula count? Because wouldn't that be like contemporary to the time it was written?
It wasn't.
no.
Though.
That's a true
It
story.
wasn't. I don't know. I assumed it was written like a billion years ago. I'm not educated.
So Dracula was written, and basically Dracula opens with 50 years ago. These things happened, so it still happened vaguely in the past. It's why setting something in like Nazi zombies isn't urban fantasy, because it's written in World War II. Actually is a setting called Diesel Punk. Is kind of what that would more likely be. Gotcha. But if you set it in your past, it doesn't count. I know it's a weird thing because as time moves on, you'd think that something like I Was a Teenage Werewolf wouldn't qualify anymore, but it does because what a lot of urban fantasy has is the idea, and I think Pops brought it up, of there's a hidden world. There's a second layer to reality. The Matrix is a very good way to think about this. The Matrix basically took the idea of an urban fantasy and said, but what if it was actually machines instead of like fairies? That's the entirety of how you could think about an urban fantasy.
Yeah, that's the one way I do feel like that is kind of the lazy way to set up the world, and also what's frustrating about it as like an audience member, because it's like really like all of history happened the exact same way, and meanwhile all this has been going on. Like, it's like it just kind of annoys me on that level in terms of like don't think too deeply about it. But it's also why I think sci-fi works better, because they have these random, like, I can almost like, disbelief, like what is it, suppression of disbelief, like be like, okay, the Men in Black are so technologically advanced, they have a neuralizer thing that makes people forget their memories, and while they do affect the real world and history, they can keep themselves hidden in that way. Versus in like, Harry Potter or something, it feels like they just don't really do anything that affects the real world or outside of themselves. You know what I mean? So that's the difference that I kind of instinctively feel. I don't know. There's probably stories, that's probably an ongoing theme, that you're stopping a demon, monster, creature, wizard, whatever evil thing from destroying the world while the world doesn't know. But it's just harder for me to believe that it happens. That I don't know.
Yeah,
Usually,
having all of this
they
happen in
use
secret.
their they use like their magic to hide it and that kind of thing and make people forget.
Yeah.
Same as Men in Black, but like less direct.
But yeah,
Yeah,
the
but
Men
Men
in
in Black had the explanation that they hid it because they had like the little transceiver thingies.
Yeah, that's what Pop's saying, though. That makes more sense to him than saying, well,
Yeah.
Wizards just did it. It's like, well, if Wizards could control that level of mind stuff, why aren't they doing more in controlling things? Like, why would he ever
Yeah,
have
why aren't they
elections?
controlling everything? Yeah.
They-
I do want to answer
Yeah.
a few chat questions. I like Sweaty saying the Mexico test. And not Alfarius, you got some good stuff here with Shadowrun. Seems cool. Shadowrun is the best setting to look at. The minute you start reading Shadowrun, it falls apart incredibly. It is
We're talking about
so
game
dumb.
rules or the
Both.
both.
The game
Okay.
rules are incredibly difficult and like needlessly complicated. And then the setting itself, it's literally, like one day we woke up and like 10% of the population turned into elves and dragons and fairies. It's like, what the hell? So it's just
Really?
like, yeah, that's how.
Yep.
That's how the
Yeah,
whole
that's
thing-
how
Why would you
Shadowrun's
do it in the
forward.
most boring way possible, as opposed to, I don't know, giving them some amount of depth?
Shut up. You.
Well, the thing is,
that way we
it's
can
like
have black orcs and not be
it's-
racist.
It's like a cycle inside their like how the whole system of magic works. Like magic recedes and then it comes back, and there's a whole people like burst back into these magical forms. And I'm pretty
Much
sure
like
it does
hairlines,
huge
yeah.
damage to their society.
Bim,
Yeah, it
you'll
completely changes society in a way that's makes
Yeah.
it unrecognizable, to the point where North America is a wasteland inhabited only by Native Americans now.
Yeah.
They cause
Sure,
a
but
genocide
also,
of white people. It's really weird.
What?
Oh,
Yeah, so it's not like it's not like this just happened and everyone was just like, well, I guess Steve's an
You
orc now.
rascal,
Like,
you got us. Oh
No,
man.
it had a
No.
societal collapse, and then like we jump forward
Yeah.
20 years.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that Shadowrun's lore is that bad.
I
It's-
think its lore
kinda
is
neat.
no, I think it's bad, and I'll explain why. Because for some reason the culture has all stayed perfectly intact.
Okay, well, yeah.
That's
All
the
right,
problem I have with it. And like, it's everybody who turned is stereotypical. There's never, in my experience, especially old lore, there never was a CEO who turned into an orc. Every CEO turned into a dragon. And it's like
What?
only
Well-
like oil workers and
Oh yeah, some
lumberjacks
people
turned
turned
into
into
orcs.
dragons.
Yeah,
that
and like only fashion designers turn into elves. And it's one
Well,
of those
you
things where
know,
like, I get what you're
You
going
are what
with.
you are.
Yeah, exactly. All white people became elves. No player. The Native Americans mostly became elves. White people just all get wiped out, essentially. They get pushed back to Europe. And they reform feudalism, kind of.
Hang
Who wrote Shadowrun?
Well, that's-
Shlomo Goldstein.
all that is taking archetypes from a fantasy setting and just applying it to whatever you see in the modern world. Like, dragons poured wealth. That's a CEO. Native Americans were known as woodland people, more or less, on the East Coast at least. So they become
I just find it the most lazy way ever. If it had just literally been everybody randomly assigned, and now we have families who are like my dad's an orc and my daughter's an elf, and I have to figure out like how do I deal with this situation. That would have been a much more interesting setting. to
My
have.
wife Shaniqua turned into an orc. Oh no!
bad idea. I disagree. I disagree just because the entire thing that makes the world what it is that you apply those archetypes.
Actually,
And then if you don't do that, you're going to get the weird like diversity quota feeling that you
Kid.
get.
Kid, I've got a question, buddy.
Yeah, but the issue
Yes,
that I
Ben?
think Kid's trying to get at.
Okay. Are there Fudas in Shadowrun?
Stop.
There's always Fudas.
Tim, please, we're live.
If there's not, it's shit.
Watch your language, sir. YouTube's going to get mad at me for that.
I-
It won't get mad at the first thing you asked about. It'll get mad at the S word you said.
oh wait, is it that sensitive?
Yes.
Holy crap!
Yeah.
That is
Yeah, holy
surprising.
cow, Batman. It's very annoying.
Gee Wilkers, my bad, brother.
Yeah, I have to. Yeah, you have to talk like you're at a playground with 3-year-olds.
Oh, I say worse at the playground.
That's fair. But no. Oh man, Shadow. We'll get into Shadow one of these days. I'm gonna do a full breakdown of the setting. So yeah, it's interesting because at this point, in like we're talking about after I was a teenage werewolf, that really popularized the idea of, well, what if we put fantasy stuff in our time? And the Twilight Zone started beginning to play with that a lot. And then that's
Oh,
when
right.
you
I
get.
forgot that exists, if I'm being honest.
Twilight Zone, or
Yeah, the Twilight Zone. It's really
Yeah.
good, though, and I enjoy it. But I kind of forgot that it existed.
I think Twilight is the better thing named Twilight.
I
don't
think
know.
that
I
you
agree.
should
Wow.
Twilight's
leave.
perfect.
Hmm.
But no, so it's interesting because at that point, you start to see a soft explosion in the late 60s. Because beforehand, a lot of people had stuff like that. Because H.P. Lovecraft, he could be considered the same thing. The difference, though, is what they deal with in themes. If you look at Sum and Substance, H.P. Lovecraft fits all the check boxes of urban fantasy. The key difference, though, is it's not dealing with how society would interact and how did this secret society keep away from everybody. It's dealing with the horrors and these terrible situations that you get stuck with. And that's why, I think somebody in chat mentioned earlier, like that the Mummy and Dracula become gothic horror, and it's kind of for the same reason. Because there's only, like, that thing. There isn't a setting of vampires that are still running the world. It's like, no, just Dracula exists. He's the only vampire that we have.
Would Shadow over Innsmouth count? Because that's like
So
it's in like
I would count it
contemporary
as
time town.
at the very least a proto version of it. You could make an argument for it, but again, I think the idea that separates that is it's dealing with the horrors of the fact that we are unable to stop whatever's going on, versus this is the rediscovery of ancient powers and ancient magics.
Yeah,
which is what a lot of
true.
urban fantasy tends to deal with. It's, the idea of we took a fantasy creature, now it's stuck in the modern day, how does it act? If Cthulhu got a desk job, then it would be urban fantasy. But the fact that he's an unknowable, killable god is kind of what sets him apart.
So it's not something like Godzilla doesn't count, even though it's like fantasy.
No.
Yeah, Godzilla does not count, correct.
Okay. Also, this reminds me, isn't it fucked up? There's fucking 4 or 5 pages. Oh, sorry. Isn't it screwed up how there's like 4 or 5 pages in like Shadow over Innsmouth, which are just straight up in like drunken sailor prose, like it's just like a straight up monologue, and instead of saying like he drunkenly said, he actually straight up wrote like the broken English.
He done said.
Dialect is one of the things that like I struggle with the most when I'm trying to help authors. There's a guy who recently sent the book to me, and I know he's not watching the stream. He asked us to read it. And I wanted to claw my eyes out trying to read the talk because he's got a Cockney like person talking, and the other person's like, I better pretend to be Cockney. So he's trying to sound Cockney to compensate. So you have these people talking back and forth, and I'm trying to read it. I'm like, I want to give you like marks. I know what we're trying to say here, but like my brain is melting because if I read the word "in it" one more time, I'm going to shoot somebody.
Yeah, it's almost always terrible. Almost always.
Terrible. That's a terrible idea. It's one of those things. I think even Kurt Vonnegut talked about it when in terms of like writing, you always kind of find your voice based on like the voices you heard in your childhood. And so like you try to just like imitate somebody in a place where you've never lived or like, something you never really experienced, even just learning slang in like, let's say, people in like the mountains in West Virginia or something. If you try to dialect like them and you've never actually experienced it, it's just not going to work. So I'm not sure.
Weird and jilted.
To be fair, we were all once Cockney orphans.
True. Yeah. But like, I just want to read this section here because, like, again, I know it's not watchable, but it's just I'm trying to understand here. Character barked to laugh the heck off the mountain. Delicate, that's a yarn taller than Mantarin's slag heaps, lass. I deserve a broad ride, ye great lump, she declared, planting her hands on her hips. After all I done for you, something grand, mind a horse, Pegasus, Griffin, maybe. Oh, what's your fair smitten with it? She giggled, darting around him like a playful setter. Bit softy under all that growl, eh? Smitten. Like, come on, please. Like,
I understood every word.
Yeah, like I get the words I'm saying it, but like as I'm reading it, my brain's like, I die. I want to kill. Like, I need sustenance. Somebody.
It's like Cockney music to my Cockney ears. What can I say?
Yeah, just say they talk in a Cockney accent and just write.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what pissed me off. Like, I actually dropped Shadow over Innsmouth for like a week because of that section. I just like, I don't want to read another. Swearing.
Not swearing is 2 words.
Yeah, no, like not swearing is really hard, kid. This is screwed up.
It's difficult. It's a very tough thing I have to deal with all the time.
I'm just realizing how unrefined my dialect is. I say
You're an animal. You're a beast of the fields.
Yeah,
that's
you gotta be prepared when you go onto YouTube, man.
Yeah,
That's brutal.
No. So I do want to finish this summary of like the history of urban fantasy because it gets weird, and this is also a key thing. Urban fantasy is actually way more popular than regular fantasy, but not in our fields. It's popular with dirty normies because the most important urban fantasy things after
Oh no, you're right.
Harry Potter, Twilight.
It gets worse. We're not there yet.
Jackson.
So we go to Twilight Zone is the next big thing.
Yeah.
Then from there, it's Something Wicked This Way Comes, which is by Ray Bradbury, which is up when I heard a good novel. I haven't read it, but there's like a haunted circus that comes and deals with it. It qualifies. Then a lot of what R.L. Stine, Stephen King, and Neil Gaiman write, it starts to pop up. But then you get to stuff like I Dream of Jeannie and Bewitched and The Addams Family, which all 100% qualify.
Yeah.
So now you'll look at it like, oh, that's what's going on here. And then you get Salem's Lot and Interview with a Vampire. And like you start to go through here. And then you get, which is the most important, by the way, this upcoming thing, the most important thing to modern fantasy is this right here. The movie Night Stalker and then the spin-off series Kolchak the Night Stalker. Those are the two most, that is the most important single piece of stupid media ever for all fantasy. Because half of what Gary Gygax put in the Monster Manual, which is what created almost all modern fantasy outside Tolkien, came from him watching Kolchak the Night Stalker and thinking, oh, that's pretty cool. So,
hell yeah, man.
I mean, it was pretty cool though. So that's why he did it.
What was the TV show about like a talking car or something like
Knight Rider?
Knight Rider. Is that urban fantasy? Does that count?
No, that counts as sci-fi. That's there's another sci-fi
Science
word
fiction.
for it.
That's just real life, brother.
But yeah,
It's like near future science fiction.
yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, almost all the Harlequin romance novels you see, and Nala Ferris clued into it. Yeah, as I was saying it, those are almost all urban fantasy. In fact, that's one of the problems with urban fantasy is it's completely overran by eroticism. That's why Interview with Vampire did so well, because that's the idea. And this is also why urban fantasy is so popular amongst those things. It is a safe, easy thing to do. Pops hit on it much earlier, but the cool thing about urban fantasy is you don't have to do almost any freaking world building. You get to cheat code 98% of it there. And the best part is you don't have to teach your audience anything about it. You just say, this is how it is.
Fucking Monster Musume is urban fantasy, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, I hate that you bring it up, but yeah. Also, Buffy the Vampire Slayer is urban fantasy.
I dropped Buffy like I think 2 or 3 seasons in.
My brother read Buffy, or not read Buffy. I'm stupid. My brother watched Buffy, and I wish that I could.
It was I liked it. Then I feel like it turned into like whenever I feel like anytime any show gets into like its 3rd or 4th season, just becomes like silly drama. For like 90% of the runtime. Like this is what happened with fucking like every sitcom.
I feel like that's maybe that's just an issue in terms of like what do we have to write about? You know, you kind of steps.
Yeah, you're right.
The Shadowrun games fall under Shadowrun. We talked about it. I don't think anybody in the call but me has played any of the Shadowrun games. I'm sorry. I can tell you right now. No, looking at the call, Vim it only plays Eastern European jank games and H games from Japan. Pop doesn't play video games. Pag only exclusively plays RPGs and strategy games, and he gets mad when you can't, keep killing Pops, not like Pop Sprayer, but like population to make the game run faster. I will never reveal what I play, and Garble's got a Pokemon channel, so you're not going to have a lot of people who would have clicked on Shadowrun.
It's all right.
Sorry, buddy.
Yeah, sorry, bud.
I can still give a take with enough context.
Yeah. And the games are fun.
I'd like to contest. I do not play weird Eastern European games. The other part was true though.
You just watch Russian dash cam videos in your free time.
Do you mean the Shadowrun Return games?
Yes.
That's on the list. There's a bunch of Shadowrun games.
I remember Shadowrun Returns as being a ton of fun. Shadowrun Returns is basically just a tabletop game in video game format.
I'm gonna be honest. The first time I heard about Shadowrun was from the Ouya commercials. They had like a Shadowrun game running on there.
Yep.
Oh my!
The Ouya, the greatest console of all time.
That's what I'm saying.
Everybody's favorite, man. The Ouya.
It ain't no Dreamcast, but
and
those are the games. Then those are fun. Good games. Would recommend Shadowrun Returns. They're $3.74 right now. They're 75% off for $3.75. That's worth it.
Actually, I'm just gonna give one to Kid.
Yeah, it's on Steam.
Yep, they're on Steam. They got ported not too long ago.
Shadowrun Returns, $5 Canadian. This is trying to bankrupt me here, Pag.
Mostly positive
But I could
reviews.
spend
I think it's worth
$70
it.
on Assassin's Creed Shadows instead.
You could. Oh man, this has a Total Biscuit review. Oh, every time I see that hat, it's like, oof.
Yep, there he is. But
Yes,
yeah,
Sam.
so going back to it, urban fantasy really, once you start to realize some stuff like Ghostbusters is urban fantasy and Gremlins is urban fantasy, and then you get into Big Trouble in Little China is urban fantasy, you start to realize just how normie the genre is.
All right, I just gave
enough
Shadowrun
time. Sorry,
Returns.
you're catching
Kid, you're
strays.
welcome.
Thank you.
Kid, you're making me deeply uncomfortable with this information.
Well,
You've burdened me with knowledge.
Yeah, it's important to remember this. And like we brought it up earlier as well, but Harry Potter and Percy Jackson, those are urban fantasy.
Yeah, that's the whole point, is that it is easy to grasp.
Super easy. It's like I said, it's a cheat code in order for you trying to like design a setting, because almost all the hard work is done. Yeah, you just have.
You don't have to world build anything.
Yeah, you just have to take random things and say that was a wizard, that was a
world
vampire.
build a bit.
Yeah,
and I think that's where a few of them fail, is that they think, oh, I can just not do any world building and just say like, I don't know, everything's fine. It's like, but that's how you get lost in the sauce and how you just don't become anything noteworthy.
You need a little bit of scaffolding. But you don't need much. Like you just need a little bit of scaffolding. Like you were saying, like, oh, wizards were here. Wizards did this, and these guys were there was a werewolf.
Does Smiling Friends classify as urban fantasy?
Oh
yes.
Oh my goodness.
In my heart,
dude, there's like elves and stuff. There's a mystical forest.
Yeah, there's magic all over the place.
Yeah, there's magic all over the place. And they go to Brazil.
That's true. Brazil is
a magical place.
But no, so the reason that it doesn't qualify, and this is going to be like a very fine line, is because it's not really
like it's not grounded in its own universe kind of thing.
No, it's grounded in its own universe, but it's not, because it's a comedy. The rules are loose enough that it's not really our world. It's like saying Hazbin Hotel would be urban fantasy. It really isn't. It's its own near our world. It's related.
Yeah,
to
I guess they never mention like city names, and also they go to like crazy, insane places. So yeah, fair.
Yeah. I mean, but they did go to Brazil though. They did go to Brazil.
But like that's why GTA is not an urban fantasy either, though. GTA's got magic and stuff that happens, and with like aliens and some of the jetpacks and the fact that you keep dying and getting back up. But it's not urban fantasy because it's like taking the ideas and putting them away. If the Smiling Friends kept interacting, like if they were the New York Senate and stuff, and they were dealing with like hanging out with New York and stuff, then it would qualify more like that. But it doesn't, because it's set in its own like pocket over here. And
because they have all their fictional and universe celebrities or whatever. Also, TF2 is TF2 urban fantasy.
It's not urban yet, no.
Like in the
you made that distinction earlier of you have to specifically be like new. You can't be 1920s or whatever.
It's actually like it'd be what's it called? Science fiction, science fantasy, because it's got so much scientific elements in it.
Yeah, there are robots and whatnot.
Yeah,
someone has a legion of robots, and
that's why Marvel doesn't qualify as urban fantasy either. Even though there are urban fantasy things, like Blade's stories tend to be urban fantasy, but like Doctor Strange wouldn't be.
The funny thing is, Marvel's actually like trying really hard to be science fiction. They're like, everything is actually explainable, guys. The gods, they're actually explainable. Just don't worry about it, but they are explainable.
They are explainable. Just don't ask how.
Just read my Reddit post where I
your Reddit post about how this will work.
They're trying really hard, which is it's very strange to me. Like just don't. You've got magic and whatnot. Just don't. Just like be that.
Can I just the fact that like the magic trick to Tony Stark discovering time travel was just like guessing until 3 a.m.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. Like,
really hard.
At my work, that's how I solve most problems. I just throw a lot of hours at it and do things poorly.
I think the worst part about that is Tony Stark had access to the Time Stone. You could have just made him some BS that he scanned like 80% of it before it got popped, and like he's had to figure out the other rest of it, which would have made a lot more sense. Also, I want to answer Player's question if we get a chance. Is there any good urban fantasy? There's lots of good urban fantasy. The Dresden Files is a good example of it. It's
Big Trouble in Little China.
Big Trouble in Little China is a fantastic piece of urban fantasy. The problem that you run into, though, is because it's so popular, 90% of it's trash.
Yeah,
read
pretty much 90% of everything is trash.
Jagan, however you say it. That manga's good.
Yeah. Just almost
Never heard of
all
that. Say that
fantasy
again?
is horrible to begin with, and then you only get stuck with. This is, by the way, this is why everybody thinks that the past was always better. The past wasn't better. The past had the same amount of garbage that came out now. Just go look up like how many movies released in like 1945, and you'll be shocked. And you'll be like, I've never heard any of these things because they all suck. That's why you didn't hear about any of them.
We actually have the
good
tech
stuff
to make.
survives.
We have the tech to make cute elf girls now, so I mean, it's objectively better now.
This is true.
So
Some
true.
of we grew up in the
And we
past.
finally get Donald Trump to give us all state-mandated elf wives.
He's working on it. He's working on it. I mean, I'm
There we
fucking
go.
Canadian. Oh, I'm freaking Canadian, so there's no.
That's why
I'm
you're
gonna
moving
die
to
alone.
America. Not for any economic reasons, just because, dude, you can get her.
I can get an elf wife named Ophelia.
Yeah. The only thing I wanted to add real quick is Dungeon Meshi came out, and that sort of feels like almost the inverse of urban fantasy, of like bringing these very new systems into like
What?
these weird and wacky systems into something that we know very well. Because they just sort of did the opposite, made like, well, what if like this was lived in, and that was basically like
That's focusing on fleshing out your setting. I always tell people you don't have to design everything from the ground up. Because great example, Dungeon Meshi. The what's happening outside the dungeon is the dumbest plot I've ever seen. Every time it cuts to outside the dungeon, like, what is this BS? Let's just go back in the dungeon and tell me what stupid thing you found that we cooked. I'm getting tired of trying to figure out the politics of the setting. Like, are the elves controlling this? What's going on here? It's very weird, and like you can tell that it's secondarily tacked on.
He just doesn't want to draw more food. He's going insane.
Exactly.
If you want to have like a big political thing in your setting, you should probably design it from the top down.
Yeah, if you want it, but you don't have to do that. That's my point. Like that whole point of Dungeon Meshi, because I know, Pops, you haven't seen it. It's they're hanging out in a dungeon and they have to cook monsters and eat them. That's the whole plot, basically.
Yeah.
And like they're dealing with interpersonal drama between the characters there. The fact that there's a whole big plot where like the Gnomish nation is trying to get control of this specific place because the elves want it, because they think that there's a great demon lord in there. Like, come on, what are you doing here? Just put that stuff to the side. Let's just focus on our friends hanging out in the dungeon and interpersonal drama. That's all you got to do for your story.
Oh, you guys haven't seen the ending, have you?
No, I feel like it takes
I'm
a
only
little.
watching the show.
Oh,
I
okay.
think it would take a little bit more in between, the people in the dungeon versus the people on the throne. You need to include a little bit more context between them to talk about why it is
Exactly.
that one person's actions affects another.
Yep. So a couple other things I wanted to bring up, which I think is interesting to talk about for urban fantasy. By the way, Highlander is also urban fantasy, which I think is very it tickles me.
Fuck you.
Go.
Yeah, it tickles me that it is. So is Charmed. But
do I open that can of worms now?
yeah, we got a couple cans of worms to open still. Don't worry.
Yeah.
So
Kansas
you. So the next thing to remember is we keep talking about romance things. So the reason that romance is often here is because there's a secondary subgenre of urban fantasy called paranormal romance. And I want to read this quote from Wikipedia from Jeannie Holmes, an online commentator, so you know it's a high quality thing.
Yeah, you know it.
Of course,
The
of
two
course.
share 90% of their DNA. However, the main differences are this. Urban fantasy focuses on an issue outside of a romantic relationship between two characters. Paranormal romance focuses on a romantic relationship between two characters and how outside forces affect that relationship. The best litmus test to determine if a story is urban fantasy or paranormal romance is to ask the question: if the romance between character A and B were removed, would the plot still stand as a viable storyline? If the answer is yes, then this is a good chance it's an urban fantasy. If the answer is no, this is a paranormal romance. So that means that specifically Book 12 and Book 4 of the Dresden Files, unfortunately, are paranormal romance. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, so if you spend more than 90% of the runtime on describing squid vagina, then like you're pretty much like you're just romance. You're not really.
Yeah, let me tell you something. When you're 99% like one thing, but you're 1% like another, that 1% is going to be brutal. If that's what set you apart.
So
There's
you're
a
gonna
one
like this
drop
quote,
policy
Miles.
here.
So there's a quote that I want to put in my book, like the fantasy setting game I'm working on. There's a system I have for like earning titles. So you could be like, Chicken Chaser and stuff like that, because I thought it was fun. And the quote is from an adventurer who wishes to remain anonymous. It is, so you have to kill 500 orcs to be known as Orc Slayer, but you fuck one goat and you're known as Goat Fucker.
True. That's just
So
true.
true.
Yeah.
Oh, I just had, because that's the quote. It says from an anonymous adventurer. I just figured that that's gonna be perfect.
Should have been from Goat Fucker.
Exactly. So the other thing is, an interesting issue with I don't want to say issue. I don't know how to put this. I'm just going to read it. So whenever you look at fantasy genre as a whole, it's usually twice, if not three times as many men are writing historical, epic, high fantasy, all that stuff. It's almost all dudes. However, 60% of the authors almost are women for urban fantasy, which is really interesting.
Sounds about right.
And it's funny, if you take out J.K. Rowling, almost all the writers for the best urban fantasy and the highest rated are men. It's weird.
Is that well, it's kind of a modern thing anyway. I was going to ask, is that like modern patterns or?
Well, it even goes technically to stuff back in the day. A lot of the earliest science fiction and fantasy stuff that was published that was like on those one-off stories, like Weird Tales, that was written by a woman, is still in this. In fact, if you all remember my Knowles video, the first story we talked about from Lord Dunsany of the Knoll House, that one is just a normal like fantasy. However, the sequel to it that was written by the chick in America, the man who sold rope to Knowles, because it takes place with cars and it's a modern like rope salesman. Which, by the way, that is the funniest job of all time to say I'm a rope salesman. Like in the modern day, got some great context. But yeah. But
I sell my rope at a particular bank usually.
I sell it to 4chan exclusively. So
Exactly.
But yeah, it's a rope salesman, which is just, again, funniest job. And it talks about he's complaining about having to deal with his credit card and his car doesn't work. So that's very clearly an urban fantasy book. But a woman took what was originally a fantasy story that was set placed vaguely in the past about, in England, and took it and Americanized it and made it an urban fantasy. And I find that very funny. Just, from a personal perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no. Future Wario has a question for us. You know what, Future Wario? I'm gonna adopt the I forget which live stream I was watching, but they said we'll answer all questions we get. We answer them truthfully if you super chat them.
Can I make the romance work?
Yeah. So his question is, speaking of romance, Sparkling Heart, I didn't mention this before, and you never said anything about these characters. I have Clay, a gnome wizard, and Grolk, a giant orc warrior. How can I make their romance Sparkling Heart work?
Well, firstly, who's on top?
Well, I was going to say relationships are like fractions. It's improper for the larger one to be on top. That's step one, and that'll cover 90% of your problems.
That's a good.
Dude, Trump's in office. He can't have race mixing.
Then you do not understand what it means to be in a live stream, do you?
Okay.
I mean, it's not swearing.
If
I
get demonetized, we'll just
you know what, man?
I'll go to Vim's house and Minecraft him.
If you get demonetized, I will give you $50. I will give you $50.
Don't say that, because I will get demonetized. I promise you. It'll do it because you said that. I don't need the $50.
No, okay, no, I apologize.
Without super chats, it'll earn like 3, so you're fine.
Okay.
You probably, honestly, by you buying me the Shadowrun game to play later, have made me more money than I would make for the VOD on this thing.
I have doubled the income. That's crazy.
But
of course, is YouTube just like really like stingy with swearing and stuff till you get to like a certain channel size? Is that how it works?
No, it's just live streams.
It's just live streams.
It's on videos they don't like it if you swear for a little while, but live streams it absolutely is. It's super anal about them, because what was happening is a lot of people would just live stream free movies. So in order to keep catching the movies, they developed a really intense like AI bot to take down live stream stuff. And they are super sensitive about that. And because like people like Steven Crowder, who they kept trying to chase off the platform for a while, wrongfully I might add, he kept just skirting the rules and barely not breaking them. In order to make sure they could stick it to him and other people like him who are using live to avoid the bots, they would just have the bots be super sensitive for live streams. So it's unfortunate, but that's just how it is.
That's very annoying, yeah.
It is very annoying.
Listen, it was the mixing of races that built this country, so I don't want to hear it.
All right, so Clay and Grok do have kids in the end. Clay is the man and Grolic is the woman. So the gnome is a dude.
It's not going to work.
Hey, no, wait, Pops. There's a meme that gets posted in your section of the server all the time.
He has a
That actually
secret
qualifies
section.
for this. Oh,
Why
he's
does
got
he have
the animal section.
Okay, I don't know where this is
No, he wasn't
going.
nefarious.
I would never do such a thing. Why would I do that? I would never. Me?
What?
Vim, you are making this very hard.
Oh, here. What's his? I'll post it right now, Pops. Tiny Rabbit is obsessed with his giant girlfriend who's 4 times his size.
Oh, that one, yeah.
Okay.
Have you ever seen Have you ever seen one of those giant rabbits?
Things are huge.
They really are that big.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I got dwarves at home in California breeds, and I picked up some from other people's houses that raise the big ones. They're insane. I think they're, what are they, Flemish giants?
Yeah, I thought it was giant Flemish rabbits. That was the thing.
They are enormous, and it's hilarious because rabbits are really like that. Like they really like it. They see a girl and they're like, "Yep, that's mine."
That's my wife for life.
I'm just on. These are dog size. This is kind of scary.
They are.
I know that they are big rabbits.
They're the size of like you've seen a Maine Coon, like a big cat.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they're about that big. At least maybe they're probably heavier, but yeah.
Yeah, are they any are they any smarter? Because I think of rabbits as being like simpletons.
It doesn't really make a difference. I mean, they're a lot lazier, obviously, because they don't really have to worry about stuff as much. You know, the little ones are always constantly running, scared of predators. Big ones are just chill. You know, like Mastiff dog.
The snow here is melting right now, and my backyard is absolutely caked in rabbit excrement.
No kidding.
You did not need to let us know that, but thank you.
Thank you, Vim.
I guess.
So, speaking of rabbits,
so
going back to Future Warrior's question about how do you make clay and garlic work. So the easiest way to make it work is first is identifying what each of them brings to the relationship. And I just had a stupid epiphany. Y'all are gonna laugh at this, but if you're trying to figure out like what a powerful woman would want in a man who's a bit of a goober,
pointy hat.
Pointy hat's important, yeah, because he's a wizard. But go watch Who Framed Roger Rabbit. The way that Roger Rabbit and Jessica Rabbit have their relationship, and she's like, "Oh, I love him because he makes me laugh, and he's the only man who doesn't see me as a piece of meat." Like, just have that be their relationship. You know, have it built on mutual trust and love. It's not that, like, to me, it's not that difficult.
Yeah, there's got to be some sort of dynamic between them beyond, like, you know, which beyond the hub.
Yeah, she clearly, you know, she clearly cares about him, and you know, as a giant orc warrior, if you're worried about him, like, being demeaned and put into, how do I put this, the secondary chair. It should be safe for YouTube if you know what I'm saying. It starts with the C word, and not a duck. But if you're worried about that being the vibe you get off, if he's a powerful enough wizard, then she could be like, bro, like, it doesn't matter how good I am with my axe. He could delete reality because he's a wizard, because that's what wizards can do in a lot of fantasy stuff.
This guy's a gnome, right? Am I hallucinating?
Yeah,
he's a gnome. How about like you just have him constantly make very very alluring gnome puns, like saying "You're my one and gnomely" and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just every 2 seconds.
If he's a fun little guy and he's always in a good mood and he's always cheering up his girlfriend, then that's fine. And also, I know it's a joke, but look at those memes where people say, you know, it's like my girlfriend went up to the McDonald's guys because I didn't want pickles and she demanded that burgers get changed. That's the type of energy the relationship should have, where she's ready to just go fist fight everybody for her husband, but she knows she has his back. It's just he's not brave enough, like, personally, to go stand out there. So she's willing to go argue with people. Yeah, if they love each other, you're fine.
It doesn't even have to be that. Like, he can be the chill one, and he can be the one who's like, "Hey, come on, you got to calm down. Like, it ain't that serious."
Yeah.
And like, he keeps because she's got that level of rage.
Yeah, because probably she's an orcish warrior. I'm guessing she's a barbarian, so that totally fits.
Yeah.
Works out. Like I said, you know, she could be the I think aggressive is a bit too harsh of a word, but the proactive one. That's the word I want to use. The proactive, we get things done. Don't let any slight be on. It's like, nah, man, it's fine. It's just pickles. We'll pick them off. You know, that vibe is easily how you get that. That type of relationship exists all over, like, fantasy, stories, and real life.
Yeah,
You know?
it's about.
I wish it existed in mine.
It's creating a balance. Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, as a romance, I think it could work. Even her name, you got to change the name. Her name is Nolik.
Change your name to Orkella.
Yeah, you got to change your name to something like vaguely like powerful and yet feminine.
Yeah, it has to be something like
Gronk?
even a
Like
little
give
bit.
her like a female Viking name.
Well, actually, first step is why Grolik? That's something I would definitely put off. Is like, why would you pick that name? And what's because he said the gnome is named Clay with a K, which I think is a great name for the gnome. That's a good name. It's a strong name. I get what's going on with him. He's probably a down to earth guy based on the name too, which is what you want.
His name's Clay, and he's down to earth.
Hey, you joke, but like these are the important things. I want to since it's urban fantasy, I want to pick on Dresden. The fact that he's named Dresden is super important for like his characterization. It tells you a lot about him because Dresden, before we blew it up, was a working man's city, but it was also something of the past. It is, yeah. Grolik is still a terrible name, Future Wario. Just why'd you pick that name? Is what we're asking.
Yeah, she should be named like Murderica or like Violencia.
Boobella.
Even if you wanted to give her a more orca-sounding name, like Urgatha works better. But Grolik, it's just you're gonna get.
It's a very man name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such a.
It's too many harsh consonants for a female name. You can still have a harsh consonant or so, but usually more female names end in they end in or aw, because you think about Romance languages. That's why they add the feminine end in them, or they add E's, another one. Like instead of Jack, it's Jackie. Stuff like that works. Or Ita is another one. Juan and Juanita. That's you could add that. And
Steve.
The suffix
created Grolik from the game Dungeon AI. AI Dungeon is, bro. I remember when AI Dungeon first came out. If you said, "Okay, I saved the fair princess, I want to kiss," it would always be like, "No, I cannot kiss you. It is too noble." And if you say, "Okay, I take off my pants," immediately hardcore pornography. Even if no matter what situation it would just jump straight into it. It'd be like, "Oh, balls deep, you got it, champ." Like, no, I said I'm changing my pants.
That's just realistic for a guy like me.
Yeah. But it's so funny because the AI Dungeon it would break itself so easily. So it would just be like I remember one time I put I said, "Ew, get off me, harlot," and it said, "You tell her to get off you. This turns her on more. She then commits the R word on you several times. You like it though, so it's not really like thank you AI Dungeon. Yeah, thank you so much."
It's consensual if the other party likes it. That's what I just heard from you.
Wario. You asked for advice, though. We're going to give you advice on everything.
Dude, you made that bed. You're going to have to lay in it now, bud. You can't just get away with it.
Yeah. He can't keep getting away with it.
Anyway, he can't keep getting away with it.
So, back to the topic, Sir Kid.
Yes.
What you got? What's next on that big old rolling list of topics that you have over there?
The old scroll.
Mm-hmm. The old roll. What you got?
But I've been meaning to talk about this. We spend way too much money on scrolls for this show. Like you get an entire scroll penned every episode. Just so much money.
I'm telling him like you can write on the back of a piece of paper, and he's
you can write on your phone. You can anywhere.
It's not proper. No, he's right. It's not proper.
Not proper. Do that. So something
then it would look silly.
Exactly. So then there's another subgenre that I want to roughly hit on. That we're going to get to. And then this is a quote by YA author Scott Westerfield. He probably hasn't written anything any of you guys know about, but he's one of the current practicing people in like this urban fantasy genre. Wikipedia says he's best known for the Uglies and the Leviathan series. So again, I don't know if you guys ever heard of those, but I do know that when I was reading some ideas on like this, he kept coming up with this quote. And I'm going to, Scott, if you're watching, by the way, hi. I'm going to have to clean up your quote because you have words that YouTube doesn't like. You guys probably detect them. He distinguishes urban fantasy in a subgenre he calls elf punk. Elf punk is urban fantasy, but it's just full of elves and fairies and traditional stuff, things that are expected. You go to the bar, you see some dwarfs hanging out. It has no uniqueness to it. It's simply translating that over. Urban fantasy, though, can have some totally made-up, effed-up creatures. You can have some wild stuff nobody's ever seen or some interpretations of old stuff that is completely against the norm. And I think that actually is a good distinction there because something like the Dresden Files, when elves and goblins show up there, they're not the traditional elves and goblins that you expect from what he would call elf punk. That's to me, it's an interesting distinction because that puts stuff like Supernatural and Harry Potter and all that in its own urban fantasy setting, while leaving something like Shadowrun in its own elf punk setting, even though Shadowrun's still a bit different. And I think
I just cringe at the term elf punk.
I do too. I don't have a better word for it though.
Yeah, I think it's an important distinction, but I feel like that would just more so just be calling something generic urban fantasy than a different thing. That's kind of my
called it Tolkienian or D&D or something, or even Gygaxian would work. Not elf punk though. But I agree, punk is just an aesthetic. I do agree, Donald Ferris. It is a very annoying and lame aesthetic.
Yeah.
It's like when they had gate to the end of everything. It's like, I get it. You're not smart enough to come up with your own word for it, so I'm sorry.
He's right.
Because the most important Watergate scandal-like thing that's happened actually came out, and it came out recently. It was the Panama Papers. I'm so glad it didn't call it Panama Gate, because that would have been awful. But the Panama Papers, which is a much more evocative name.
Watergate punk.
Yeah.
is this podcast EFAP punk?
I think this is EFAP punk. I think that's exactly what we're doing right now.
Oh no! Did we accidentally coin a term? Oh,
we don't have a token furry actually.
This is EFAP punk.
Garbled.
Guess what, Vim?
I have a job for you.
Vim,
What?
put on the collar, Vim. You're our token furry now.
Oh, no, I was trying to make Garbled do it.
He already did the Pokemon. He can't handle that heat.
Oh damn! We don't. I have to become the podcast whipping boy.
You're the furry. The whipping boy's Des. That's why he's not here yet.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
oh, he just sort of came and then left, didn't he?
He's
Just like
many
Pat's dad.
But he's
many
gone.
fathers these days.
Like your dad got him.
You popped into the same joke.
Yep.
Ah, love it. Anyway, so the reason I want to bring up this distinction is this is important whenever you're when you as a creator are designing your own stuff. It's important to look at Dishonored writers to be like, it's whale punk. Oh yeah, it's still diesel punk. Dishonored is. I want to like Dishonored. However,
Propane
every
punk.
time I talk to somebody about Dishonored, or every time that I read about the development of Dishonored, I want to take everybody involved and throw them in a blender. It's always the most pretentious fart sniffing stuff ever. I'm like, why do you like this? Why do you make me want to hate you?
That's how I feel about I recently watched a video about the guy that made Braid. I didn't realize he was such a fart sniffer. I played it years ago.
so
I thought it was
annoying.
cool. Yeah, I didn't realize that. I never saw anything of him. I just played the game on Xbox and man, this game was cool. I didn't realize that
Cool
he thought
game,
he
a great concept, fun ideas,
Yeah.
and you read about it online. It's actually all about the punishment. I was like, oh,
You don't
fuck off.
understand Braid like I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's
apparently he was friends with Soulja Boy and stopped being friends with Soulja Boy over Soulja Boy just thinking Braid was cool because of how nonsensical it was. He's like, it has deep meaning.
I'm actually really
He's
smart,
like-
guys. You just haven't recognized my genius.
No, but I hate that so much. Because
Oh boy.
it's one of those things where we'll go back to the urban fantasy. So the other thing with urban fantasy is, and the thing that I see a lot of people do that's interesting is something like the Wolf Among Us is the game that the best game that
Among
Telltale
Us?
made. Yes, Among
Yeah.
Us.
Amogus.
It's
Yeah,
like
bogus.
it's a mess.
I knew it was going to happen. Don't worry. But the Wolf
That's a
Among
good game,
Us,
by the way.
it's a great game. It takes them into something interesting with them that I don't see in a lot of other urban fantasy settings. Oftentimes in urban fantasy, the fantasy elements are supremely powerful, and they're not powerful enough to destroy the reality, but they're powerful enough that they can mog on and destroy any individual person or individual elements. So it's often a tale of the people holding back the fantasy environments from destroying the civilized world. That's what Dresden Files and Supernatural both cover very, very well with their. I say with Grimm as well, but Wolf Among Us is interesting. It takes as an opposite approach, where basic reality and like humanity is so far gone and advanced that these fantasy creatures can barely squeak by, and they have no frame of reference for how they should deal with the modern reality. Because if you go back and read fairy tales, these fantasy creatures have a very one-track set of mind. They have a very way that things work. Like trolls are a good example. A troll cannot function without a bridge. How do you, as a troll, deal with that when a society that has more airplanes than bridges now? Do the trolls just starve to death? And what does he do? How does the troll work? Does he become like a toll worker? And that's what
TSA agent.
Exactly.
The unemployed troll.
Yeah. Well, you joke, but but that's an interesting section of urban fantasy I don't see talked about really well. And it doubles because, and tiny little bit, fart sniffery for a minute, but it doubles because it's a really good way you could talk about immigrant stories, you could talk about outsider stories, you could talk about lost society stories like coal miners. Being a coal miner is kind of a losing gig right now, or manufacturing jobs in America. You could tell those type of stories and make them relatable and interesting to people who aren't coal miners or who aren't like automotive engineers in Detroit, and tell them through this fantasy lens with all the
Take him to Detroit.
Exactly. But it's one of those things where, I see that, and I've only really seen the Wolf Among Us be the one that tries to tackle that angle from it, and it's interesting. I don't know why.
Well, who else tackles that angle?
Who?
You know who else tackles that angle?
Please tell me.
Shadowrun.
Fishermen always love tackling and angling.
Yeah.
Shadowrun goes too far.
The lumberjacks become orcs.
Right, but I think Shadowrun goes too far, though. Shadowrun upsets the entirety of society and takes it almost unrecognizable.
I don't know. There's a bunch of really recognizable stuff in Shadowrun. You still have. It's still recognizable as modern society. Everything still works the way you'd expect it to work. There's boats and ships that take products.
Genocide in all North America, and there's a mega city in Mexico City now. Tenochtitlan is back, and it's like a floating pyramid mega city.
But there's still League of Legends, dude.
This is true. There's still League of Legends.
Always League of
How
Legends.
can I forget?
But there is still this recognizable modernity and whatnot, and all of these people kind of get into their lives. You can still go down to the bar and get a beer with a bunch of guys. It's that regular, of a society. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Sure. There's dragons that control mega corporations, but nobody's interacting with dragons.
Right, but that's not.
And as long as you're not in North America, if you're in Europe, it's pretty much Europe.
But it's not the same as what the Wolf Among Us is doing, though. The Wolf Among Us is it's a forgotten peoples is the story that it's being told there. It's just people who don't fit into modern society struggling to fit into it. That's the tales it's going for. Whereas Shadowrun, modern society's changed and is now just finding your place in it again. Anybody can kind of do stuff, and it's also got a little bit of cyberpunk put in it. It's more fantasy than cyberpunk. It's more fantasy than cyberpunk, in all fairness, but it doesn't have the things. Like I said, I'm specifically picking on the Wolf Among Us because that story. If you look at everybody's in rundown apartments, everybody's struggling to find their place in the world. That's to me a more interesting way to use urban fantasy that I don't see very often. And of course, not saying Shadowrun's not interesting on that. It's just I almost always see urban fantasy as the hidden society, not so much that could destroy everybody. Not the hidden society because they're scared of the fact that they're losing.
Kid, how do you classify supernatural mystery stuff like 999 or whatever, where it's completely grounded, but then there's some. It's not a matter of having a fantasy race or whatever. It's something out of this world kind of thing. What would you something Life is Strange? Something what would you?
Life is Strange.
What would you consider? Is that urban fantasy to you?
So there's another that specifically falls under supernatural fantasy. I think is what it's called.
Lesbian punk.
Yeah, lesbian punk. Oregon punk. Portland punk. There we go. The worst genre.
That's so funny. That's terrible. That's
oh god.
For that one.
I should go to jail for saying that. But no. So The difference between that and what other fantasy like this is there's a single inciting incident. That's what also sets a lot of Gothic fantasy apart too.
I think that's what something like Stalker is as well, like Roadside Picnic would be, where it's like
there's a single thing that's wrong, or even I guess.
I mean, I gave 999 as an example. That's just like in the first game, it's literally just like real world, except there's like telepaths.
Oh yeah,
and a pharaoh.
Escape,
yeah. I love Zero Escape, man. The second game is nonsense. It's so good.
Oh, it's so nonsensical, but it's so much fun.
Yeah, well, it's like grounded within its own like absolute nonsense.
Oh
like,
yeah, it's absolute nonsense, and I feel like the third game really dropped the ball.
I have not finished. I got like 2 hours in, and the fact that because I read quickly, the fact that it's like a long cutscene where you can't click through text is very difficult for me to get through.
I get that.
Yeah.
Do you read?
You get that?
Oh yeah.
I've never seen you read a word in your life.
Well,
I don't read anything.
You always tell me script is for fools. I only need to speak.
Exactly.
Script is
I don't
I
read
talk,
scripts.
people listen.
Yep.
People listen, or people talk, I don't listen.
Exactly.
Well,
Why should I listen?
Mouth open, ear closed.
Just
That's right.
like Dracula float stuff.
Not a sound.
Yeah. And so that's hopefully that answers that question of what sets that apart. Because again, if it's a single incident or a single thing, it's not like all of society is got this hidden behind it. It's not like there's a whole thing that they uncover. Especially, because if there wasn't any sequels to Life is Strange, then you definitely wouldn't have gotten anything after that. It would have just been a one and done thing. Like that's why something like The Shining also isn't urban fantasy. But it gets to it later on because Stephen King ties all of his books together. Because he gets weird.
You know something?
Yeah.
Stephen King alone is probably the reason why so many urban fantasy books are on average male. Because he's written like 1 million books.
Most urban fantasy are female.
Oh.
Yeah.
What do you think of like
It's the same reason, by the way, because females tend to like more Stephen King's books than males do. Not saying men can't like Stephen King, but a lot of Stephen King's the mystery novels appeal to that. That's why he's got a lot of female protagonists too. And it's honestly because of Anne Rice. I think she's the one that really cracked that whole nut because she's the first, ironically, bad phrasing, writing Interview with a Vampire in '76 sort of changed everything. I want you, it's tough to understand how important this book was for, chat and stuff. This book is, other than I'd probably say Lord of the Rings, the thing that brought fantasy to the mainstream the most before D&D. It really goes Lord of the Rings, and then it's the people who followed it. A lot of, stuff that tried didn't break through. Interview with a Vampire broke through a lot, and then D&D broke through. I know D&D came out in '74. It didn't break into the mainstream really till, about '82.
I've got a question here. Have you guys read The King in Yellow?
Yeah.
Yeah, a long time ago though.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember the first story in that, The Repair of Reputations, where the setting is like the U.S., except they made I can't say the specifics of it, but they made a few political changes and a couple outlandish things. Otherwise, it's just at the time same. Modern, and would that count as urban fantasy? It's probably more of a PAG question. He's the.
I thought the agreement was that urban fantasy had to be now. If you make something in the 1920s, wouldn't it just be historical fiction?
Well, he wrote it in 1895.
Yeah, it was now for then.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think so because I also don't feel like it was explicitly a fantasy type of story.
Well, yeah, it was clearly his fantasy to have the government do those
things. If we're cutting Lovecraft off, then I think The King in Yellow has to be cut off.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, specifically, Repair of Reputation was just
well, hang on, because
it's borderline. I think it's close enough that it shares some DNA, but it's not quite there.
Okay,
it's like a cake and pie are both baked goods, but they're not the same.
Or kind of like how really Hungarians are about some of that stuff. Kind of like how Hungarians are based off of the same clade as Mongolians, but you don't call them Mongolian.
Yes, actually, and that is a factual thing.
Yes, it's like how think about how I think True Detective season 1 was based on that story, and it's like it was a lot more kind of psychological than like fantastical, and I think that was more the meaning of it.
I've been looking for a good copy of The King in Yellow, but all of the old like nice prints of it are like minimum like
$1,000.
2K. Yeah,
No.
2K.
Like, I keep on thinking of historical fiction games that I'm like, I really want to talk about. That'd be really cool, and then it just sort of doesn't. Because you said The King in Yellow, I'm like, oh, Fear and Hunger, and it's like,
Yeah.
but that's historical fiction.
Save this for Garbled's Galaxy every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern.
I
call
do
it
want to
Shoddy
answer a
Scrapyard,
question
it's
from
fine.
chat. Has any of you brought up Dishonored as a solid secret world aspect? So Dishonored is different because it's already set in its own fantasy setting. That it's secret world, which is cool there. And I already talked about pretentious and how we hate all the writers of Dishonored. But it's already its own fantasy. It's just solidly diesel punk fantasy. And I know that not all fairies brought it, they call it whale punk or something stupid. But it's... Yeah, not all fairies. He did that to trigger you. The Dishonored is like, how do I put this? It's not urban fantasy. It's just the quickest way to put it. It's just fantasy. That's why Final Fantasy VII, even though it's in an urban environment, it's just fantasy. But Persona is urban fantasy, especially Persona 3.
Do I need to play the sequel? I don't know. I'm trying to think of whether or not I should play the remake for Persona 3.
Well, I mean, I've heard the pacing is a lot better because Persona 3 was like glacial. The only reason I got through it was because of emulator speed up.
Don't tell
What?
my boy if he's I think he's watching us today, but when he super chats a lot. He hangs out here. I know him IRL, same coin. He will kill you. He's my World of Warcraft stan, and he absolutely loves Persona. Also, that traitor Nebula also likes Persona, but he's not watching right now. He's streaming himself playing Monster Hunter, like a nerd.
Oh, you were gonna say a different word there.
I was gonna definitely say nerd the whole time.
Why would he say anything else?
What?
That'd be really rude. What's wrong with you, Vim? Why would you think he wouldn't say the word nerd?
What word?
Well,
I don't know why I had that voice on there, though. That was
I don't
weird.
know.
All right, so we're going to move on from here. Is there any more settings that you guys want to talk about and compare to see if they are or they aren't urban fantasy before we just start getting into some other details?
I mean, all the ones I can think of are definitely urban fantasy, so it's not really worth bringing up right now.
Fair.
Everything I can think of is like way too niche for anyone to even have like touched it, so I would be wasting your time.
Okay. Monster Hunter Addiction is more crippling than WoW by far. Everybody I've seen who's picked up that game can't put it down, and like I'm pretty sure they're going to start starving themselves.
I've put like 20 hours in World, 20 hours in Arise. I never like I just like I get like a decent amount through it. I'm like, this is stupid, and because you just bash the same guy for like 8 hours, and then you die one time, and then that's it. You don't want to look at it again.
Just play RuneScape instead.
I mean, that's like real.
Another MOBA.
It's like real life. Like I get paid in real life for doing something stupid for 8 hours.
Yo, it's so true, bestie.
Instead, I'm paying to do something stupid for 8 hours. It just doesn't check out, man.
It doesn't have the same charm. To answer the Arcanum is in its own fantasy setting. It's diesel punk. It's its own little thing. I like Arcanum a lot. It's the third Fallout game, but it's definitely not urban fantasy.
How about something like Katana Zero? I guess that would be urban fantasy, right? Or that'd be more sci-fi.
I have never
Sci-fi.
heard of or seen Katana Zero. Sorry, bud.
I feel like it's like barely sci-fi, as in like, well, I guess the setting has like wars that didn't happen, but like as in like the actual setting is just straight up like.
It's probably more of an alt history than alt history sci-fi then.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, we're gonna talk about alt history one day. That'll be a lot of fun.
You know it.
I do want to read the Wikipedia definition of urban fantasy. I forgot to do it earlier. It's stupid. Urban fantasy is a subgenre of fantasy placing supernatural elements in a contemporary urban affected setting. The combination provides the writer with a platform for classic fantasy tropes, chaotic plot elements, unusual characters, without demanding the creation of an entire imaginary world. Which is just
that's
I'm reading. I look at why would you put chaotic plot elements? Like, who's gonna know? Like, it's
I thought you just like
Quixotic.
Quixotic.
Yeah. Well,
Okay,
Quixotic is Don Quixote. That's why.
I thought you were like screwing up the pronunciation of chaotic. I was like, man, kids really let himself go. He's
Quixotic because it's supposed to be Don Quixote.
Quixotic, yeah.
Yeah.
It's pronounced Don Quixotes.
Yeah, Quixote.
Quixote.
Quixec, Quixotex, because it's plural. Shout out to all my Latinxers. I know that we have
Tio.
several. Yeah, Tio, my favorite Latinxer.
With
Tio
the hard.
Hard X.
Almost all of my conversations with
Google's saying that it's pronounced Quixotic. That's the pronunciation that's on
Okay,
Google.
I'll trust
Yeah.
Google.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna post in the chat. This is my last conversation with Tio.
Yeah, I don't think it actually does reference Don Quixote. I don't think that's what the word. I don't think that's
I know.
referenced.
Totally wrong about
Well,
that.
it does.
actually, no. Don Quixote was super idealistic. So yeah,
There's no way. That's like the book besides the
Mhm.
Bible. Like everybody read the
Don
book.
Quixote.
Dude, if you just
Oh,
Google it
Yeah.
and click the show
Yeah, no,
more
you're right,
button,
you're right.
it says at the bottom, early 18th century from Don Quixote plus ick.
yeah.
Come on, man.
Yeah, that was like the
Bro-
the
Bro wrote
Spanish.
such a banger.
It's
He invented a
funny
new
because
word.
like that's the best Spanish story, and like you ask them for a second one, and they just say, "Oh, we have Puss in Boots."
I'm sure
It's
there's
like,
other
should
good
you
ones.
read Puss in Boots? No, it's not very good. Just read other people's renditions of it.
I'm sure there's other good, Mexican fiction.
There's that one
It's not Mexican,
Colombian
it's
book.
Spanish.
No, this is like Spanish.
What's that Colombian book called again?
What?
It is
Get-
100 Years of Solitude. That book. I've heard good things.
That's not Spanish, so that's Colombian. I'm talking from
They're the real
España.
Spanians. They're the real Spaniards.
Oh
That's
boy!
All right,
Yeah.
that's fair. You might be right. Yeah, you might be right about that.
Yeah,
I've never heard of anything Spain has done ever in history.
Did they
Say it.
even make taquitos, or is that the Mexicans?
I'm not
Uh,
sure Spain exists.
This is the deciding thing. Where
Exists.
do they-
That sounds fake.
Yeah, I think Kid is putting me on one.
taquitos invented.
So also, I do want to answer Mazrim's questions. You do kind of create a
Who?
fantasy world. It's usually just a shallow one that exists within a normal world. Yeah, that's the problem with a lot of urban fantasy. It is just a shallow facsimile. And if you create your own fantasy setting and like you change too much, it no longer is an urban fantasy, which is a bit unfortunate. But it's also an important distinction for the genre, and that's why Wizard of Oz is not urban fantasy. To answer your future Wario, it's not.
This is
urban
also
fantasy.
why Monster Musume is the only good urban fantasy.
Of course. You know, Des, you should join the call. We're talking about the show with your future wife, the Spider Girl.
What?
But what's with the hard limit of 6 on the channel? Is 7 too many? Have we?
Because you've
moved
not
down to
counting it,
science?
Vin. There's currently 5 people in the call.
No, it says the maximum is 6.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he can
6 is
join.
the maximum. Any more than 6 people, we cast them away into the fire to burn and burn forever.
Yeah.
Is this because of your OBS layout?
No, it's actually because we one point had 9 people in the call, and nobody would
much.
shut up long enough for me to talk. So
That's a good podcast.
That was our
It's a
best
good
stream.
podcast. Just 8 people yelling over each other.
It was awesome.
that was our second best stream. Our best stream was still responding to Joseph's.
Yeah,
Joseph
That was
Anderson,
a wild
No, we're coming.
series.
that was a great.
Some guy tried to do a takedown of Blackarooni's awful script that he wrote for a Godzilla thing, and he tried to do a takedown of Godzilla. And thank
He did
you,
a
Zim,
really
Zim.
bad job.
Thank you, Zim. Shekels for the
Yeah.
workplace, my boy.
Echoes.
Go check
We
out
really
Zim's channel if you. Speaking of Godzilla, by the way, speaking of the devil, he will arrive. Zim makes great content about Godzilla and talks about it all the time. And Rooney did a script. It wasn't very good, but this guy who responded to him somehow took every single thing out of context.
Like
and,
every
in the
single
worst-
way that you could make it
Yeah.
not right.
So it'd
He
be
did
something like
that. It was
Rooney
crazy.
said that there's a Hungarian that the Japanese Navy used a Hungarian machine gun that was invented 2 years later. Okay, that's a valid criticism. So you go to say, all right, so what's his criticism of that? Man, their boats don't have guns like that. It's like, oh, what are you talking about? Well, they do have guns on boats.
Yeah, we really
Yeah.
unleashed autism on that guy.
Oh,
It was pretty fun. That was a good
great.
time.
I had a great time. By the
Yeah.
way, Chad, if there's ever a video that somebody makes about a fantasy topic that you think is stupid, you want us to reply to, pump it to me in my Discord, and I guarantee that we will respond to the video. I love those streams. They're so much fun, because we did one 2 weeks ago, the last stream, and I had a great time. I was feeling so vindicated after we ripped into that guy, and how we was talking about fantasy heartbreakers, and how wrong he was, and his stupid wrong opinions.
Kid, you should make a second channel where you just post like incredibly bad fantasy videos where you just don't research anything and make it all up.
I was thinking about, for an April Fool's video,
No,
making up a
make
monster and like posting, like doing like a huge, like fake deep dive about it.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm saying do that, but make it like your second channel, but also do like real stuff, like in real events and stuff, like real
we go.
history, and make everything up.
And I do want to say something. So for Vim, for Zim, Zim's completely correct.
Oh.
We should talk about Haunted the Reckoning and Vampire the Masquerade more. We only barely touched on that.
The unfortunate part is that I don't know very much about either of those.
That's
so
okay, Garbles. We have an expert here. We have a man who's lived in it. He became a vampire briefly. Pag.
So true, Umphy.
Yeah.
I mean, I played
When
like.
did that happen? Why didn't you tell me about this before, Peg?
Oh, you know.
It was when he was in
I
New
got a lot
Orleans.
going on, buddy.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, Vampire the Masquerade is like
One of the top.
I don't. Yeah, it's probably one of the most popular as far as tabletop goes. It's definitely the most popular
Urban fantasy.
like
series by far.
urban fantasy that there is. Yeah, and it does it all in the interesting way of basically the magic stuff was always there, except like that politician you love in the Congo who did those things that you're not supposed to talk about. That guy turns out to be a vampire. And the environmentalists are all werewolves and whatnot. They're
Well,
like
that's
secret.
true.
They're little like secret societies within these things. And it's kind of what you were talking about with like seeing how these like small outcast groups fit into society. In some cases they thrive, like the vampires. If you're a vampire, you're pretty much it. Like you have one it all. You're there. Whereas if you were something like a
gnome?
prototype, I can't. No, there's no gnomes.
Just
No,
take bugs.
gnomed. It's like Prototype, the created or something like that. Those guys are all outcasts and they don't have a good time ever. And then there's like the demons who are all paranoid and crazy.
Depressed all the time if you're a wraith.
Mm-hmm.
What is the most Irish race in Vampire the Masquerade?
The Irish.
The Irish. Yeah.
Well, what's the
the
second
Irish.
most? What's the second most? Don't say the Scottish.
That's what-
Scots Irish.
Okay, what's the third most?
The Gaels, the Gaelic people.
Well, it's actually
Name
the
every
Cornish.
European
It's
admixture.
It's the Cornish. It's obviously the Cornish.
Oh, yeah, the Cornish. Yeah, the Cornish are there. The Basque. There you go. Let's get everybody mad.
What's
Just say it's
the
Basque.
most Irish fictional race in this? Like, do we have one that just like?
Probably the. I know that the Fae are vaguely in it. Probably one of the Fae.
Okay. Did they just,
Yeah,
sing
because they're kind of
songs and
inspired.
Yeah.
mine and be sad and have a million children.
No,
It's
that's just you.
There's nothing wrong
pretty
with
cool
that.
being a fairy,
There's
though.
nothing wrong with that, but it's very
It
Irish.
is.
Yes.
It's actually very Catholic, sir. Get it right.
Um,
But yeah, so Vampire the
Anywho.
Masquerade and its derivatives, Wraith, Hunter, all those games are fantastic in their setting. The setting's called the World of Darkness for anybody who's listening. The modern stuff gets weird and too political, of course, as everything does. But when
Oh, was that the guys that did the checklist?
yes, and
Where
they
like
said no
you
Nazis
get
can
a
play in our
checklist
game.
of everything that you don't want in your game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't be a Nazi in the game where you specifically have to play a vampire and kill and snuggle people for power. Yeah, Nazis aren't allowed.
Yeah,
Murdering
you
a
know,
hobo?
just to keep it.
The setting's about a secretive group that secretly rules the world, I believe, right?
Yes, and that's all we're going to talk about, Vim. That's where it ends.
Yeah. Well, there would be nothing else
That's
there,
where
man.
your
I don't know what to
discussion
talk about.
ends. And I mute you
Yeah.
for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I
Head
just
that
want
one
a
off
yes
with
or
the
no. I
pass.
just want a yes or no.
Yeah, the
Very
answer is yes.
interesting.
It's about a secret
Yeah.
society that rules the world from the shadows and has controlled all of European history and led them down certain paths and developed in a certain way to benefit them the most while they leech off the society. Yes, Vim. Yes.
Very,
And
very
to
interesting.
answer the more specific follow-up, also yes.
Yes.
Anyway,
Are the vampires circumcised?
so
some probably are because they're Romani, but some of them aren't. But
So true.
the Fayana, yeah, I think that Zim's got it. The Fayana. But it is. I think the best urban fantasy for if you're trying to rip one off, that's the best one to rip off. Even though it's really cool, it's got a lot of in-depth details. It's generic enough that when you're just looking at the broad strokes of it, that you could easily be inspired by. Shout out to World of Darkness development live stream. Oh yeah, that was a great live stream too. Mazum's right. Yeah, go check out the World of Darkness live stream we did. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're trying to just say like, what if you're from the ground up trying to create your own urban fantasy setting, and you want it to be a bit more heavy than something like Supernatural, where it's just kind of vague, unexplained monsters show up sometimes. If you want to go past that, like flesh one out, Vampire is a great one to rip off and start with for sure. The World of Darkness and the way they deal with stuff. I would suggest that you include more than just like European-ish monsters, because that's a
Make
problem
sure
they ran
you
into when they got
What you
more
should do,
developed.
right?
Purple
What you should
women,
do.
large breasts. Sorry, go on.
You should make your players make humans, and then you should torture them with all the supernatural stuff that's much more powerful and terrifying than there. And that's what you should do. That's the best way to play that game, is to make them play humans, and then you don't even like have to use the vampires and whatnot. You could just make up supernatural things and do thing a week if you really want to. It's the best way to play that game. I've got like a bazillion hours in that game. That is the best way to do it. Telling you, hands down. Scooby-Doo adventures, except people die.
Yep, it's pretty cool. But I would also, if you're trying to develop your own setting, it's a good way to start from, because of how integrated they are into society. It's really interesting, because once you start looking at some of the more, like the non-playable factions, like I know there are playable ones, but like the mummies, the way they do, Jim got it. He ripped off World of Darkness for his cryptid kaiju setting. It's a great idea. You could just take like 80% of what they have there is the best parts. And I'll even say one of the coolest parts of the Dresden Files is it's basically him fighting against the vampires from World of Darkness plus other stuff. And the way that they did vampires in World of Darkness is perfect. I don't like their werewolves. They're good for that setting, but I wouldn't put them in my setting like that, werewolves. I think werewolves need to be a bit more like vulnerable is the best way I can describe it. The fact that they're like immortal killing gods is great for that setting, because everything in that setting is super powered, but like I would tone it down a bit personally.
Boys, is Mike Tyson's Mystery, is that urban fantasy? Mike Tyson Mysteries?
I think it might actually be.
Come on, man.
By the way, I do want to say this keeps popping up in the Wikipedia. It keeps wanting me to tell you all that Rosemary's Baby, according to them, is an urban fantasy.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
So to answer the question, Matt, he asks, isn't playing humans in World of Darkness just Call of Cthulhu with extra steps? I played neither. No, Call of Cthulhu, it is not as brutal as people think it is. Call of Cthulhu is brutal if you play it like D&D. Think about the way I can explain it to you. If you play like a Bloodborne, the way you play Skyrim, you're gonna have a bad time. But if you play it the game the way the game asks you to play it, it's not that brutal. It's obviously more lethal, but it's not gonna. You're not gonna have oodles of characters dying all the time. Versus if you play a human in World of Darkness, it's very, very hard to not die, because everything is actually just so much more powerful than you. Like, vampires in that setting, they don't deal damage to humans. It's just, if you hit, you kill like 50, move on. It's insane how the power levels the vampires have. They have to fight other
Not exactly that
things.
silly, but yeah, it's pretty silly. And a lot of their abilities just work. Like, on mortals, they just work. There's no roll or anything like that. Like, their mind control abilities, like, if you run into a vampire, that's it. You're just done. Like, if it's that specific type of vampire. So that's how freaky it is. And also just seeing the supernatural can cause people to go insane almost immediately.
Both settings that happens, to be fair.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, for Call of Cthulhu, it's usually the investigators can beat whatever they're up against if they did it right. Not in a fist fight way, though. It's almost never a fist fight. It's almost always we researched it and we found the Necronomicon, and if Bill sacrifices his soul, we can lock away this demon for another 60 years. That's the way it works. Kind of like It, if that makes sense. It would, if I was to run It, I would use the Call of Cthulhu setting. people will die, but it's not so much like that's not the point of it. Versus Vampire the Masquerade and the entirety of World of Darkness setting, it's like early Game of Thrones. Like everybody's just dying all the time. Like, all right, I can't really figure out what's going on because everybody keeps getting killed a lot because the stakes are so much higher.
I just remembered, like, almost every webtoon is a urban fantasy, like Solo
Yes.
Leveling, The Gamer. Like, the Koreans love urban
Because,
fantasy.
again, it does 90% of the work for you. I don't have to explain anything about backstory, world setting, anything like that. And I want to, gonna pick on Dresden Files. It's really easy for the Dresden Files to, like, when he makes a joke, for you to laugh at it because he's making a joke you get. So, like, when he's got his apprentice, he's trying to teach her how to do something. Instead of, trying to come up with a humorous line, instead he just quotes Yoda. He goes, do or do not. There is no try. And it's funny because, like, we get the reference, we get the joke, so we're in on it. But, like, he doesn't have to do world building. That's the free card he gets to cash in because Star Wars exists in this setting, which makes it way easier to write. Again, I'm not saying Butcher's not a great writer. He is. But when you're working on like a setting for yourself, that's why urban fantasy is so popular. You can just cash in stuff for free. You can make a Power Rangers joke and nobody's going to bat an eye. Whereas, if Gimli said, this is as tough as that popcorn bucket I had to scrape off the floor. Like, what the hell are you talking about, Gimli? When somebody talks about popcorn, when somebody talks about popcorn in like, and the Korean stuff you mentioned, Vim, you're like, I know popcorn. It exists here. It's fine.
Was that what they were trying to do in Marvel then, when they had like the Fortnite jokes?
No, that's just Marvel.
New Master 9/11 just killed me.
Yeah, Marvel's Fortnite jokes with them trying to
appeal to the younger generation.
Not just the younger generation. They were trying to appeal to the broader culture as a whole and like try to say, look at how integrated we are. Marvel does this a lot where they have a lot of surface level world building that seems neat when you're staring at the screen, but when you think about it, it's absolutely awful. My favorite example...
you remember...
Go ahead, Pops.
You remember the "What are those" joke in Black Panther?
Oh, that was so cringe.
Wait, they had a water... Oh my god.
Yeah. It was 6 years after the meme died, too.
Remember how much people remember the movie?
Like 3 years later, yeah.
It was so bad.
I don't remember anything. I just remember the guy had the weird nipple skin.
Yeah.
He did, yeah. He did have nipple skin, that's true.
Well, that was a reference to the Joel Schumacher Batman movie.
Which is, of course, a reference to the real-life nipple skin event of...
nipples. Yeah, everybody has it there. But,
I mean...
Something that bothers me, I want to shut this out about Marvel. Their world building, when it's not just stuff like that, where it's just making references to our society, like a lot of their in-universe world building for like their own stuff is stupid and weird. There's a moment where if you're watching the last Avengers movie, where they're at Little Asgard and they're just going through it, and there's an ice cream shop, and it's called Thanos' Infinity Cones. And
okay,
right,
wow.
At first you see that, well, who cares about it? But this dude just killed like half the universe.
Well, to be fair, they have like the biggest clothing store chain in Pakistan is called like Hitler Drip or some shit. I don't remember the exact name.
Well, that's not
that's 100 years later though, and he only killed 6 million people in Europe. He didn't affect Pakistan
it would be like
okay.
Hitler didn't affect Pakistan.
Yeah. Okay, but
I
guess it would be. I would say like culturally, it would be a similar thing. Not like in practicality, I meant like culturally.
Yeah, exactly.
Whoever set that shop up, that Thanos killed half the people he knew. Half of the people in his life, Thanos killed.
And remember, and it's even worse. It's not the snap. Remember, the Asgardians. Before the snap happened, I think it's 3 weeks before the snap, Thanos invaded their ship and with his hands killed half the people on the ship. So it's not snapping their bare hand. You watched him rip your child in half because he's like, well, you get to keep this part for the balance. And it's like, and you made it a cone shop, an ice cream shop.
Now, what part of the food is Thanos shaped? Is it the ice cream?
Because they're cowards.
God, because are they Thanos molded cones? If so, did they do the cock?
Oh my god!
All right, man.
Oh, he went to open the
that could be referring to chickens.
Where
No.
Pop's talking about chickens. Pop.
It is.
Pop's
Anyway,
talking about chickens.
As far as I
Talking
know,
about
I'm really liking
When-
Not All Fairies come up with dictator food names here. This is fantastic. You know, I can't read some of these on stream, but Chef's Kiss, sir. And Mazrim there, I love it. But I do want to answer this question that this point Zim brought up. When it comes to Call of Cthulhu, the setting is higher stakes. There's a lot more hacks to beat these creatures. Where World of Darkness is more entities directly running around that will just kick your ass in. He's completely correct here. This is exactly how I would describe both settings. On paper, Call of Cthulhu is scarier, but like every monster's got like 6 weaknesses if you just understand them. And then
this is unrelated, but kid, you should do like an episode on like Chinese wushu at some point.
I would
'cause that's,
love
like,
to do a wushu
dude,
episode.
I love wushu. It's like
Wushu
my
stuff
it
is
was like
so fun.
it was like my guilty pleasure for like several years. I just like would read up, and the funny part is literally every series is the exact same. It's awesome.
100%. They all have absurd names. It's great. I love it. Wushu,
God,
Wushu is one of the...
I cannot believe the young master is only seventh heavenly golden dragon layer.
Yeah.
What is
Vim, if you ever get free time and you ever want to have fun, I will schedule a game for you. There's a tabletop game. I got to find the name of it. Seth Skorkowski covered it. It's a TTRPG where you play as Wushu characters, and it's got all the nonsense that you'd expect.
That sounds awesome. However, I have an erratic work schedule, and I cannot agree to any.
That's what I said. Whenever you're like, I got a month off work, we'll do it together.
When I get laid off, brother, I'll message you.
Beautiful.
Soon.
Soon? Come on, man. That's so mean. That's mean as shit. Come on, man.
Tomorrow.
You're gonna call my boss.
We're gonna send in the live stream, Vim.
Yeah.
We're gonna call your mom and we'll have Atreya send it to her.
God dang it, dude.
So,
He's screwed up.
But anyway, I love the memes here, chat. I wish I could say some of them, but these are high quality things. Thank you all. I'm sure I can get away with a couple of them, right? Yeah, I'll say it for those on audio.
That's
only.
fine.
Yeah.
Chat, if you say a thing but you send money, we'll say it anyway.
That's true. That's true.
We have no limits. You can
like
put
I
anything.
said earlier,
It
all
will
questions
say
will
it.
be answered, but only to get the truth, you have to pay.
Yeah. I like Pol Pot's Pizzeria. I think
Pol Pot's Pizzeria and Mussolini's macaroons are my favorite so far. And Mao's Mushu stand, that one I had to mute the mic because I was going to laugh at. Solid soup and sandwiches. That seems like something that Bernie Sanders would open, though.
Yeah.
And I like
down the solid soup and sandwiches.
Yeah, I like No Mustache Man's hot dogs, but
I like that more than the actual one that he presented.
This is true.
No man's.
No
Lenin's
Mustache
logs.
Man. Well, you can't even say it, Lenin's logs. That would be that's a really funny name. He's got to serve like sausages and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
No Mustache Man's funny symbols pot stickers. That's a good one to edit in. By the way, I really think it's interesting that because of YouTube censorship, we've had to develop a new pidgin language to like censor ourselves, which just makes the words more powerful and like makes them more like enticing and exotic, which only makes kids want to use them more and think that these words are like useful. It's great, YouTube. Thank you. We can't have a PG-13
It's the words of power.
Yeah,
I've gotten into the habit of saying brother.
Good. Oh yeah, you say it a lot.
I say that a lot. That's a good
Why?
one. Well, it's just a good one, man.
covers you. But yeah,
It covers all your bases.
it
Let me tell you
does.
something, brother. Listen to
Hell
me,
yeah,
brother.
brother. All right, so,
Brother.
No, brother.
I know.
Like with an
I
A
know.
at the end.
I'm trying to
No.
save you, sir.
Oh, thank you.
Sir, I'm saving you. So, with that, I think we've pretty much covered the main opening strokes of urban fantasy. Obviously, if anybody has any questions about it, we'll answer it before we bounce. But I think with that, a certain fifth member of the panel has something they want to talk about. You're the first member,
Kind
sir.
of yes, kind of no.
Like that.
Go for it.
Well, I kind of want to talk about Homestuck, kind of don't because it's Homestuck.
Okay.
No, you can't make me talk about Homestuck. There's no way I would ever mention that breath.
My brother.
Just talk about Undertale. Just talk about Undertale instead. It's
It's not even urban fantasy though.
Yeah, it takes place in the real. It's like a secret world under the real world. They get out and just regular old town.
No,
End of the true ending is urban fantasy, dude. It's urban fantasy.
It's true.
It's just urban fantasy.
Guevara's gelato stand, I like that a lot, Sim.
You
I can
have an
see that
option,
happening
Garble.
on
You
the
can talk about Undertale, or you can talk about Homestuck. Which way was there, man?
Homestuck's probably easier to do because it's like there's the analog. It's kind of weird because they have human world and they have troll world. And what makes it weird is that troll world is basically, well, what if we took the human world but also made it fantasy? So it kind of does it like
half
it kind of
urban
does it like
fantasy?
reverse. Kind of reverses it. In the sense that instead of it being like, oh, we have orcs in human world, it's now you're having what is functionally a human world and populated by a fantasy race. So it's neat. Trying to think, it's hard to go of like, well, what's the specifics? It's like, yeah, they have phones and all this other stuff, but because they're a weird alien culture, they name them something else. Because the Homestuck trolls, they don't
called them
have like
foons.
regular names or anything. It's like if you have, it's a husk top because everything's based on bugs when it comes to their technology. Come on now, guys! Don't ask that many questions. I can only keep up so many.
You ended that with like an inflection. You're about to continue to say something, sir.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
So everything is made of bugs. All of their technology is made of
All their
bugs.
technology is made of bugs.
Kind of like our food, yeah.
It's so
So-
true.
Is it technology or is it just bugs?
Yeah. Is it?
I'm assuming it's
Does
like
it count?
magical bugs that have like technology properties.
Are they
I don't know.
alive?
They're not really magical bugs. It's like organic material that's sort of used as technology.
Man.
Does it still do the same thing? Like, or are they just like?
Yeah, it
making
does
up-
the same thing. It's just that
Okay.
it's
It's
the
stupid.
best I can put it is like you know of like palette swaps and stuff like that where it's functionally the same thing but it's
Yeah.
different because it's different.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is. And then you have the additional system of the game that they are playing, which is it's very weird, but the entire point of it is that you added like an RPG system into modern day.
That's
It's pretty neat. You can
There's also another Korean webtoon like that. It's called The Gamer. Stupid title, but it's pretty good. It's literally called The Gamer.
It's called Gamer.
Yeah, look up The Gamer webtoon. It has
Does
like
he
1,000
rise up?
chapters. He does rise up. He
Oh yes.
he does
Check it
rise
out.
up. Trust me. It's actually. I mean, okay, it's good. It's good in like a slop way, kind of like how I'd recommend like Black Clover as like superb shonen slop.
Yeah.
My buddy was watching right now. He'd be on fire. My
It's-
editor for my
it-
first video. He loves that show.
Bla- Black Clover is fun. I don't know. I don't think it's good. I think it's fun.
That's fair.
I think
that's totally
that's
fair.
how I
That's
describe
fair.
like most shonen, where it's like it's
Yeah.
not good, it's fun. I think the only shonen which I think has like not the only one of the ones that I think has like actual like merit as like a as like a world or whatever is like One Piece. That's like one of the ones which is like
I'm surprised you
that's
didn't say
more
My Hero
of
Academia.
high fantasy. It's not.
What's
urban
it about?
oh that's another urban fantasy, isn't it?
Nope.
What?
There's too much technology in My Hero.
What tech do they
Yeah.
have that's not like related to like because like the only like non-regular tech they have that's like not related to like quirk stuff I can't even think of it because like most
They have
of
an
their
entire
cool tech-
academy that does that, dude. A third of the students go to that.
oh yeah because it's like all the like the devices that
Yeah.
dude that's like if like I haven't watched since season 3 came out. When did season 3 come out?
Bro, you
Yes.
I don't want to. I'm sorry, dude. You have so much shenanigans. You know what, Vim? Go watch our live stream where we cover the end of My Hero.
Yeah.
I've heard he gets cucked or something. I don't remember.
Go
Yeah, he
watch the
does.
live stream. We talk about it. All right. So while Vim talks about that, is there
Yeah.
a what goes and watch that? I want to answer Future Wario. What will the next live video topic be? You can do what we were talking about here earlier in ideas of magic systems and post-apocalyptic fantasy. Those are good ideas. I don't know what the live topic is yet. Usually, the co-host and me have a discussion about it. We give it a little bit of time before we lock it in, just in case some news happens or something like super important. Like if when is Snow White comes out in a few days, and if that's like surprisingly everybody thinks it's really good, then I'll probably end up having to force the guys to watch that, and we'll talk about it. But like if it
Yeah.
sucks, and nobody
I
cares
would
about it,
rather.
By the way,
hang
fellas,
yourself on the toes.
I'm gonna make some dinner. I will talk to you guys later. It was fun being on here. I apologize for my conduct. I will do it again. I'm sorry.
But just imagine, have you ever seen the one where it's just the very fat Neko arc that says, "I'm sorry for my behavior will happen again"?
I
Yes.
think I have. I'm probably stealing that. But anyways, yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course.
See
Thank
you
you
guys
for
later.
having, thank you
Thank
for
you.
being here. It's great to have you.
Voice on there.
Bye.
See you, fellas.
Yeah.
I like that guy.
Yeah, he's okay. I'd kiss him on the lips.
Yeah. Sky High.
Yep.
Sky High is like a concept. It doesn't
No.
do enough with this concept though. Unfortunately, I would say.
That
Sky
is
High is a
not
better memory than a show than actually watching it. Um,
Sky High rules. Sky High is the best movie ever made. I can recite every line.
I'm not going to question you on that because we'll start.
Are you
start getting judge
insane?
lines.
I don't have your strength.
Yeah. But no. So we're going to
Yeah.
probably keep the topic open. Is all I was going to say on that, Future Wario. If there's a video you come out with that you want to watch about, let me know. And then for that, I think you want to talk about your book bag or?
No, it's all right. We're near the end here.
That's a good time to talk
no,
about
you guys can go read it. It's basically I don't know if it does count as urban fantasy now that we've been over it because it's post-apocalyptic. Do post-apocalyptic things count as urban fantasy?
But that's what
I think,
Future Warrior proposed for next week's topic: post-apocalyptic fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
I read the book and I think it probably does.
Yeah, because it's post-apocalyptic, but also like society's still getting back on its feet.
Like the cities still have the same names. Like
it's only 15 years after the bombs. Like the bombs are relatively clean. So it is post-apocalyptic, but also a lot of it's recognizably like what we've got going on now.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe it does. Maybe it's right on the edge. Anyway, go read it. It's full of ancient deities and whatnot, and spooky demons, and people shooting other people in the face with cool guns.
And the plan is to have it live next week, Future Wario. It just depends on things at home.
It's called Scion of the Void.
Yeah, Scion of the Void.
I didn't say it the whole time. Yeah, Lex Hedges, Scion of the Void.
Thank you,
Check
Lex.
it out. You're welcome.
I feel like what you also have to do with a lot of these stories is that they have their own individual worlds in addition to just the human urban fantasy world, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. There's some secret world aspects we talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There has to be a secret world layer on top of our world in order for it to be an urban fantasy and not just a fantasy in the modern times.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely not the secret world aspect in Silent Void.
I want to say that Homestuck kind of has that, but they do and they don't, and that they have a very specific history of how there is a dictatorship that rules the planet, and anybody who is, I want to say the word, but it's discrimination based upon what is
penis size?
No, it's immutable characteristics. That's the word I'm looking for, because we can't see the other words because otherwise we get demonetized, and that bugs me.
I see.
Okay.
So the very last
thing I got.
It's all right. So the very last thing that we talked about earlier, we hinted at it. I do want to bring it up. Bright. Bright is the worst version of this.
The worst movie ever.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's the worst movie ever, but
it's close. It's close.
It's pretty bad.
If you watch it as a comedy, it's not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you imagine it as like a intentionally bad comedy.
Yeah.
Like,
if it's a post-ironic comedy, it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. If everything's meant to be silly.
Yeah. So Bright has the problem of being written by a moron, and it's written for retards. And that's why it got so much acclaim and why Netflix picked it up. It has the most surface level of all takes. It is specifically written with the theme in mind, and it does everything it can to set the theme up, regardless of what the story wants it to be. And it goes out of its way to make sure to be written, to sabotage its own theme. Because, again, it has the theme as its core concept. So those of you who don't know, the film Bright basically has everything in the modern day, except that there's fantasy races. And orcs are black people. They are like full-on black people. They're smoking doobies and they're wearing baggy jeans. And if you don't get it, you're a racist because you don't understand the message and the idea it's going with here. And it's
The
trying
one
to
thing-
say,
the one
stereotypical.
thing-
yeah, it
the
is
one
so
thing
stereotypically
I-
black that if you put black people in these clothes, you'd be arrested for hate crimes in 19 countries.
Now, I'll
Yeah.
say one thing. The only difference that they try to rectify it with is that they say that the orcs like can't play basketball.
Yeah, that's the one thing they try to fix it with. Like, look, guys, we're deep and nuanced. Oh gosh.
All
They
right.
say they're like,
Yeah,
Play basketball.
I swear that
Oh dear.
yeah, I
they're
know.
like basketball is an elf sport.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Orcs can't jump. You know,
So-
Sorry, buddy. That actually kind of makes it worse.
Yeah,
you
no,
had felt the need.
It's something. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Bright does this thing where because that's the entire point is to make orcs black people. That's the whole point of the entire piece. So it wants to show a lens and say, look at how bad these orcs are treated. Don't you feel bad for black people in our society? Which, sure, if they were treated as bad as the orcs are in this film, yeah. But there's a problem. Black people don't deserve to be treated poorly because they're just normal people like us.
No.
Orcs are actually evil, though. Like, in universe of Bright. Not like in a meta sense. Like, no. Like, how are orcs created? Well, 1,000 years ago,
The Dark Wizard, yeah.
The Dark Wizard came out, and all the orcs willingly joined him and started massacring the land, and they had to launch a crusade to kill them. And at that point, they just didn't wipe out the orcs because they felt bad for them. It's like, I'm sorry. You guys started,
Like,
you
excuse me.
launched the genocide, like, against all of humanity, and you're
Yeah, the
mad that they
everybody
don't give you
genocide.
jobs nowadays. It's a little bit different from black people. Because remember, they didn't choose to come here, a lot of them. They were forced over here as slaves. And they were forced to work and, be put into the ghettos in society. They didn't do anything of their own choices to get here, like, as individuals. But the orcs and their
Yeah.
ancestors chose to, like, commit war crimes and try to kill everybody. The fact
They
that
were like,
weren't
hell
wiped
yeah,
out-
Dark Wizard.
Yeah.
it's because it's like they're trying to draw the parallels based on just modern stereotypes, and it's like
Yeah.
it may have even been received better if you just had it be that the orcs had been subjugated in the past rather than like tried to kill it.
Yeah. Yeah, they explicitly say that. And it's never like countermanded. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's confirmed by the orcs at multiple times.
And like, if you
I
talk, and
think
the
it
other thing
is.
is in the movie and this book especially, when they talk to orcs don't say, "Oh man, it sucks that we work with the Dark Wizard." They'll always like, "Man, it was better under the Dark Wizard."
Yeah, yeah.
Like they're happy.
Wow.
Like, I
In
wish we
fact, I
killed
love
all you
violence.
bastards with the Dark
Wow.
Wizard. If we would have won, you wouldn't be living in ghettos. You'd be dead. Thanks. Like, come on. Gosh, it's so frustrating.
Bit of a
But yeah,
silly film.
That was my initial kind of point of why I don't enjoy a lot of urban fantasy, especially the TV shows and movies like that, is
Mhm.
because it's so blatantly like modern Americanized that it just doesn't really jive, so to speak. It's not cohesive with like the traditional archetypes of fantasy
Oh.
because a lot of stuff in America is just it develops so much differently, and you got your own myths and everything, and it's hard to apply them in a way that it's hard to apply them in a way that relates to anything modern, really, especially because America is kind of the arbiter of popular culture,
Mhm.
modern wise. Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, don't watch Bright unless you want a laugh. Good for a laugh.
And
though.
like,
It is.
it's so frustrating because here's another thing about Bright. So they tell you, hey guys, there are 9 fantasy races that are like good guys, and then the orcs are bad guys. Okay.
Yeah, and then there's the evil people.
Yeah. Then
who
there's-
are
then
in
there's the-
fact evil.
Yeah, who deserve everything. Okay. So if that's the 9 races, what, counts as a race? Well, confirmed by Landis himself, the 9 races are humans, orcs, elves, centaurs, dwarves, Breezik, which are like their version of lizardmen, giants, goblins, ogres, and Panahau, which are like, we don't know what they actually are. They're just listed as there. Theories, according to the internet, they're walruses, which is okay. But then you think about it, like, wait a second. But there's a dragon in one of the books, and you see it flying in the movie. So does that not count? So are dragons not one of the races? But then what about the fairies? And as Future Warrior says, he kills a fairy in the beginning of the film, like I mentioned at the start of the podcast. So do fairies count, or are they not? Do they not count?
There's certain sentient species in this story that are just vermin. They're just straight up like, we kill those like that.
I think it literally is. It's like sapient versus sentient almost.
Mm-hmm.
Dragon. They're not looking at a dragon as like a humanoid, human-minded thing. Even though I think it should be most of the time. It's just kind of there aesthetically.
Yeah, it's just an evil monster. It exists to be like an evil monster, and that's it.
So frustrating. It's
what's a better version of a kind of reimagined fantasy setting is Wicked, which I read the book recently.
I believe it. I fully believe it. It's got to be better. It cannot be worse.
It's great. That dude really knows how to string together a sentence, and I don't know if I'd call it urban fantasy, but maybe I don't know.
It's just a straight up fantasy, I think.
It's
some of the stuff going on.
Because it's not just a hidden world within the human world. It's literally a world where like you get transported there somewhere. Like the wizard is a human being from like Illinois or something. And
why Illinois of all places?
It's somewhere. Where was Daisy, or what was her name? Where was the girl from?
Kansas.
The girl was Kansas. I think he was from like around there somewhere. But yeah, everyone else in the story, and it follows obviously the Wicked Witch and Glenda. But yeah, everyone else is like native to that world, so it's totally different. I wouldn't call it urban fantasy, but it is much more appealing as a reimagined telling of things like that. And honestly, the movie's not good. I didn't really like the movie; it was a little too Crowleyan. And then obviously, I know the soundtrack from the play because of all my sisters and my mom, but I didn't like the play either.
Well, I want to finish bashing Bright. I agree with you, Pops. I'm sorry. I have a lot of hatred for this freaking thing.
I don't even.
So Shrek exists in the setting canonically. And remember,
Is that correct?
ogres.
Oh?
Yeah, Shrek exists, and ogres are one of these sentient races that we think happen. They're on the U.S.
How does
Census.
that work?
Yeah, so is it like a racial thing? Is Shrek just like this bastion of evil racism in the movie? Like, I don't understand how it works. And, because you look at, like, what the hell's going on here? How could Shrek possibly be made? And like Mazur said, I'm glad all the architecture and languages developed the exact same because they were alongside a dozen other sentient races for 1,000 years. It's just
exactly.
Yeah, we're not all that different. Even though some of us are like actually evil, we're not all that different.
Another thing is...
Yeah, it's all that different, you and I. It's just that you're incredibly evil.
Oh, you guys aren't ready for this.
Exactly.
It's so much worse. It's in interviews been said, and he talked about undead exist in the setting, and they're treated like the LGBTQ community.
No, you can't. No.
Yeah.
What does he mean? What does he mean?
I don't know. Yeah. He said, undead, unlike other races, are diverse, like the LGBT community. And
what is there no undead marriage?
Dude, I don't know. I cannot it's just something he talked about. Like, the undead in the setting is just kind of like how the LGBT community is like, why would you say that? How have you decided to double down on your just moron like status? Also, he mentioned halflings and werewolves exist in the setting. So it's like those are another two people. Like, are they just not people now? Necroids, exactly.
Yeah.
But just
oh my god.
Oh, it's so weird. Like the Alamo happened. How do you have that's confirmed? How do you have the Alamo?
How does the Alamo happen? What? Yeah.
What do you mean? What?
Yeah, I mean that's what he means. The Alamo happens. They reference the Alamo. Like I think they say remember the Alamo specifically.
I think that means that Mexico existed though.
Yeah. I suppose so. Mexico
I think
it passes the Mexico test.
Here's another funny thing. The only dwarves are confirmed, but the only confirmed place that dwarves exist is they have a small but vibrant community with pork-filled sandwiches in Miami. So I think the dwarves are all Hispanics.
Porkville sandwiches.
That is
Latinos.
They're just Latinos. So now it's like, great. So you're saying all Latinos are dwarves. Like, what are you doing, man? Like, come on.
This is my brand
It's
of racism.
very-
All Latinos are dwarves.
Can I mention the R word? Can I even mention
Very
it?
racist, yes. It gets better.
Oh, okay.
Because
Yeah.
they say that the Jirak, who's the orc who betrayed the Dark Lord to help the good guys win to kill him 2,000 years ago, it happens 2,000 years ago. And when they talk about him, because, Jirak dies and comes back like after 3 days to like lead them, which you
Like
hear
Jesus?
that, you're like, wait a second, 2,000 years ago? And when Jacoby gets resurrected in the film, one of the orcs priests say he has risen. What are you doing? So now you're saying that the orcs that Jesus is here? Like, why?
Jesus, bro.
Why is orc Jesus here?
Why wouldn't he be here?
No, maybe it's looking into it too deep. Do you think that's like kind of implying that the doctrine of Christianity is like evil?
Like it's the thing. It can't be, because remember, not only did all the orcs rise up to fight the bad guy, but they talk about how this guy led the rebellion and killed him. So an orc both killed the Dark Lord, so they should be celebrated for that, and they also led his armies themselves. And one of the things that he talked about is how the orcish religion is like Christianity, but like, does that imply Christianity doesn't exist? Or does Christianity exist? Because Christianity existing is kind of important for
A lot of things, yes.
Yeah, kind of thematically important.
When you
It's
take into account that it's
so
supposed to
confusing.
have a lot of the same history, it kind of has to exist, though.
Yeah. What if all of the races have their own specific Jesus? Like, what if there's an elf Jesus and like a dwarf Jesus?
Oh, you know
How
what?
does that work?
That's how Europe got it.
It gets
That's
better, by the way, because before the movie came out, the original idea with it was the orcs are going to be Jews.
Oh,
That was the original way he wanted to work into it. But because according to the interview here on TV tropes they cited, they said that they were meant to be Jews, but after the movie deal got started, he realized they worked better as black people, because the way the orcs are generally Jewish people. The Jewish people were discriminated against and accused of betraying Jesus, even though Jesus and the rest of the disciples are Jewish. Just like the orcs were discriminated against for siding with the Dark Lord, even though Jirak rose up, to lead them. He's basically like Jesus to their Judaism. Why? Why?
but why? That's all I really have to ask. But why?
But why did you?
It's deeply. It really is deeply unfortunate. The whole film. Anyway, go watch it.
Go watch it. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's another thing. The mafia is all elves. Like, why are the elves in the mafia? So like, well, they already control everything else.
Italians are perfect.
Exactly. And here's another thing that they talked about: the elves thrive off pollution,
What?
and because they thrive off pollution, they pollute the environment more. And what this does is it causes pixies to die more.
But who cares about pixies?
Yeah, who does?
Fairy lives don't matter.
And I want to read you the location of all the species, where it's theorized by people based on the descriptions. You ready for this? Orcs have come from Romania. That is confirmed by Landis himself, which is hysterical. Based on the way that the cultures have aligned and certain strongholds, the centaurs are from Greece and the elves are from the British Isles. The current theory is dwarves are either Hispanics or Northern Europeans. The ogres are most likely Central Europeans, and the giants are different species in different parts of the world. Another thing says people think they're India because they mentioned the liking colors. Genies, Bosagen, and Kitsune may also exist. What?
Yeah, oh, just let me just drop this in there.
Huh? I don't.
It's one of
Why?
the most horribly world-built settings ever.
It's demented. It
So
is demented.
outstandingly stupid. Like, oh, we could do an entire just takedown of just this thing, just from the world-building perspective. It is so annoying because this was supposed to be like the mainstream breaking in of I don't want to say urban fantasy, like with the Tolkien, with, the elf punk, if you will, the the Tolkien-esque urban fantasy. And this is what we get. We're never gonna get a Shadowrun series because this crap is here. Is Talos the Jesus of Elder Scrolls? No, Lorcan is Jesus, by the way. Actually, if you really want to get the answer, Future Wario, the listener for the Dark Brotherhood is Jesus, and the Night Mother is Mary, and that is not like a theory. That's canonical. The writer who wrote the entirety of the Dark Brotherhood lore wanted to have Catholicism in this setting. They said no, so he just made them evil, and he slipped it past Todd Howard. So yeah, but Lorcan's actually Jesus in the Elder Scrolls.
What if he had succeeded and there was just Catholicism in Elder Scrolls?
That would be nutty.
Yeah, like, I kind of wish I saw that world.
Yeah, he just and there's some crazy stuff. Some of the stuff that happens in the Elder Scrolls, like behind the scenes things, like that would make a great video one of these days. Just talking about all the crazy like behind the scenes, like almost lore.
Mm-hmm.
Because man, so much stuff happened. The almost lore. So chat. That's it. Bright's coming of the year. It's pretty much going to be heading down to Miami for a Dwarven Sandwich. I agree, Matt.
right.
I agree. All right, kids. With that, we're going to call it here. Thank you all for joining us today. It's always been fantastic.
Okay, hang on. Before we wrap it up, everybody in the chat, once again, thanks for coming. And make sure that you guys are subscribed to the Amazing Astronaut. Okay.
Yeah, go subscribe to Amazing Astronaut. Go subscribe to Astro.
And Blackaroonie.
Yeah.
And Blackaroonie, yeah.
Blackaroonie definitely needs some subscriptions right now. And Garble, too. Let's push Garble to over 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even publishing any videos. Let's go!
So, all right. And you all have an excellent day. Thank you for joining us, chat. I will talk to you later. Go